Welcome everyone to the Agentic AI Innovation Summit. This is Domo's first ever virtual event dedicated to exploring the future of autonomous AI agents. We are so excited to have you here. Don't hesitate to show us in the comments where you're from, what company you're with. We'd love to connect with you. I'm Mark Booth. I'm the CMO of Domo. We're excited to have you with us. This summit today is about much more than trends. It's about action. We're stepping into a new chapter of AI, one where agents don't just support the team, they are the team. These agents, they automate workflows, they make decisions, drive outcomes across the entire business. And clearly the world is paying attention. We've had over 6,000 registrants for this event today. We're featuring 27 speakers from companies like Google, AWS, Ford Direct, One Magnify, Blue Yeti, Domo, and a whole bunch of others. We've recognized over 60 standout leaders as award nominees with over 4,000 votes that have been cast by this fantastic community of AI professionals. So let's get this summit rolling. Our first live session starts now. We're thrilled to be joined by Jim Fairweather, who's Google's head of AI go-to-market. Jim has been at the forefront of commercializing AI for real business impact, helping some of the world's most innovative companies bring AI to market responsibly and at scale. Today, Jim's going to share Google's vision for agentic AI and what it means for the next wave of go-to-market innovation. Jim, thanks for coming today, and over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. Well, good morning and good afternoon to many. I will just kick off here with a picture generated by one of our image models and video models. But I thought this represented all of us well, and some of our clients is we're all, we've got our goggles on, we're swimming courageously through all of this change. And it is a lot. So if you're feeling like it's a lot, you're not the only one. Everybody is feeling it. But today, what I'll try to do is 4 things. I'll provide some context about agents, how we can think about them. We'll discuss the market landscape, a little bit about how Google thinks about serving our clients in this agentic era. And then finally, I'll share a little bit about what I'm seeing, how companies are meeting this moment, either for better or for worse. And having opportunity to talk with the Domo team, I would just say, and as I think, as evidenced by doing this conference, they are leaning into this in a serious way, and I think they're on the forefront. And from what they're building, it's been really fun to watch. So a lot more you can expect from them as well. But I guess first I'd like to start with a question: is who is going to win? And you have us, you have ChatGPT, you have Claude, you have all these different companies, and they're all we're all pushing each other. But the answer to this is you. All of us are going to win because of the fierce competition around all of this and the innovation that is moving so quickly. And one of the ways I think we'll win really quickly is that AI agents are going to start to take away the joyless work. That's where it's going to start. Is that a lot of the stuff that we don't like doing, expense reports can be one of those things, or whatever the menial tasks that don't really take a lot of the special things that we bring to the market. Agents are gonna be able to take that on for us. But sometimes it can be hard to think beyond that. And what can an agent do? What do I want an agent to do? How big can we think? One of the ways we try to do this is just thinking about, what if you had 1,000 interns that work 24/7? This helps unlock some efficiencies, but also business value. What if you could scale that 10-person company to 1,000 overnight through agents? And I think that's what we're starting to see as people dream big with these things. And I think if you take away nothing else, when you're going to hear from a bunch of smart people today doing a lot of crazy things. What I would just say is think bigger. Now with all the multimodal capabilities that we have, think creatively and think bigger than we ever have before. It's not just text in and text out. And I think there's a lot of different use cases, that we think about. First, it's, business to consumer. There's a lot of different use cases. You're already seeing some of those today from our friends at OpenAI, from us. From Microsoft, you're seeing some really cool consumer agents that are hitting the market, where kind of rolling into this B2B market, which I think a lot of us play in here. And I think that's coming slower, but it's coming. And I'll talk a lot about that today. Then I think there's this thing that's not quite here yet, but coming. And that's where we have these businesses selling or talking to agents. And I think that's going to be a really important part of how we go forward and the kind of the design thinking about how we build. But I think if there's something we can all agree on is that agents are going to be everywhere. They are, I think this is a little bit analogous to kind of like the App Store and when all the mobile apps hit. You're going to have some that are free. You're going to have some that have kind of paid trial, and you're going to have some that you pay for. And I think that will largely be dependent on the value that the person gets from it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and pricing and how that's all going to work for folks, because it's an open question right now from my view. But you might be asking, okay, Jim, sounds good, but where are they? And I guess what I would say to you is that a lot of them are still in the oven. You're seeing these things come out, but I think when you're seeing, especially in the B2B space, you're seeing people, and we try to do this as well, balance boldness with responsibility. People have brand names to protect and reputations they built over many years, and to come out and have an agent that has a security flaw or does something that is unintended is not okay. So what you're seeing people is try to push the envelope, but also do that in a really responsible way, because look, frankly, there's a lot on the line. And so, but they're coming really fast. I mean, what I think is we will start to see agents. We're already seeing agents come to market now. And I think we will see a separation from folks who have built agents well and responsibly and boldly that will start to take the lead in 2026. I think you'll start to see that separation quickly. We did a study not too long ago on this kind of ROI of Gen AI. And it's interesting. There's a lot of productivity-based benefits. A lot of it focuses on business growth, improved user experience, and then security needs to be a part of it as well. But I think one of the main takeaways I got from this is that we're seeing business, CEOs be really focused on business growth. We're seeing CIOs and CTOs be really focused on efficiency. And the CFO wants them both. So I think depending on where you sit within the organization, or if you're selling to an organization, it's really important to make sure you're focused on those different pieces and what the company is trying to do and what your company needs to do. Do you need to become more efficient, or are you pretty efficient today and you need to focus more on business growth? I think we're going to get both, but it's going to be super important moving forward to quantify that value one way or the other. And so we saw these themes that we're going, we've moved from kind of hype to, just having something, to a focus on ROI that's going to deliver this business value. We went from POCing kind of science project-y stuff to doing real projects that have time to value, because if you're not working on an agent now, you're late. And you need to be. And so everybody's trying to move faster, and Gen AI, especially with all these coding use cases, is helping us move really, really quickly. But the time is absolutely now. And we've seen these move from just these tech-led discussions to really business-led discussions, because the models and the agents are allowing us to kind of move up the stack to focus on what's really critically your competitive advantage versus just, being able to think really diligently about the tech and figure all that out. A lot of that platform is being built now, and there are a lot of platforms to choose from. But I think when we think about how for your company and how to build what you're trying to build, focus on your competitive moat. Be very strategic about what is the thing only you can do, only your company can do. And I would build out from there. But as I said, we're witnessing this kind of like incremental progress in AI. We're entering this whole new era of innovation and adoption. And I think we're seeing three, key trends. This multimodality, where we're breaking away from this kind of limitation of text. And that's how we started with agents, is like text in, text out. I would argue that is not an agent. An agent is something that gets get something done autonomously, maybe a human in the loop, but it can go out, do a task based on the parameters that you've set. And so as you think about building, how can you be more creative, use images, use video, use audio, making it seamless and easy for that user? That will be important. That's kind of where the puck is going, if you will. So don't build for where AI is today. You have to build for where AI and these agents are going. These agentic workflows, it's becoming more autonomous, more capable. We're seeing this rise of these agents that can reason, plan, adapt, transform how we all collaborate at work. And then lastly is this kind of knowledge frontier. We're redefining the access and how we interact with information. And it's breaking down all these knowledge silos. And it's empowering us to have insights like we never had before. And so it's just truly a super exciting time to be in AI. And again, I come back to this is about being really creative. This is a new surface with which we are able to play in and show up. And so it's a great fresh start. But, we are in this world where there's going to be, this multi-agent world. Forgive me. Sorry. And there's going to be a lot of different players. And so as you think about enterprise systems today and how they talk to each other, you're going to continue to see these companies that kind of have to work together. And I'll talk more about that. One of the things we've come in to try to help with is building this agent-to-agent protocol, which is allowing agents to talk to each other and is designed really for this kind of like enterprise-grade interaction between agents. And so there's a lot of technical details that this can go into, but I'll share some of that and how I like to break it down kind of like this, because this model context protocol became very buzzy, and I think a lot of people didn't know what it was, but it's this, it's an open standard developed by Anthropic. I'm sure a lot of the folks know this already, but I think the analogy is helpful. It's like it's the chef in their kitchen with their tools. And so you have this chef, imagine this chef, which is your AI agent, knows how to cook, but to actually prepare the meal, it needs ingredients, which is like data sources, and kitchen tools, which is your external services and APIs, like a knife, stove, blender, pantry. So MCP is kind of acting like that standardized design for all the kitchen tools. So it ensures that no matter what or who makes the knife, the stove, the blender, they all have this common way that the chef would pick them up to use them. For example, all knives have a handle and a blade, allowing the chef to confidently cut with any knife without needing any special instruction. And if we go to the agent-to-agent protocol, this is an open protocol that we support, and a bunch of Microsoft has come in with us as well, and to adopt this kind of standardization. But think of this as your team of chefs collaborating, working on complex problems. But so it's not just one chef now, but a team of specialized chefs, these multiple AI agents, working in a busy restaurant or kitchen. So you have one who's a pastry chef, another's a grill master, the third handles appetizers maybe. But A2A is like this agreed upon communication system and workflow for these chefs. It allows the head chef to say, hey, pastry chef, I need chocolate cakes for table 5. Pastry chef understands, takes the request, knows how to provide the cake, or the grill master might tell the appetizer chef, I'm starting the steaks now, so you can prep the sides. A2A provides the language and the rules that these chefs talk to each other, delegate tasks, coordinate their efforts to produce that complete meal, which is like a complex task that we need to do. They don't need to know internal workings of each other or the brains, but just how to communicate effectively. And so you're going to see us and others come out with this kind of like agent development kit, which is to help developers build, manage, deploy agents. Often includes components defining agent logic, managing their state and memory, integrating tools, which might be MCP, orchestrating multiple agent workflows, and which might leverage A2A. But this is kind of like the culinary school in its curriculum. So you think of the culinary school, which is the ADK. This is the school that provides everything for aspiring chefs they need to learn, become successful, standardize the recipe techniques, access to the kitchen tools and equipment, lessons on teamwork and communication in the kitchen, ways to store and manage their recipe books, which is like agent memory and state management. But it doesn't define the communication protocols themselves like MCP or A2A, but it provides an environment and tools for developers to build agents and utilize these protocols. And so when we think about agents for developers who are going to deploy agents, or for employees to discover and create and use agents, there's been an evolution of this, and you can kind of follow along for how we got here. But you'd start with the LLM with a prompt, then you use RAG to retrieve the facts and the data, via search, and stuff those into a prompt. And then in the future, there's some models that have function calls allowing LLMs to figure out what APIs to call and the right arguments and to execute them. And then we got into this reasoning loop to determine and understand. But where we're ultimately going is having these multiple agents across multiple systems that are going to be able to work together. And now, so when you think about the architecture, it's far from known today. It's kind of like saying, what can you do with the internet back in the 90s? So we're very interested in in async tasks and background agents, decomposing into tasks and making them to, refining plans and tasks and using reinforcement learning, and, optimizing this feedback to create this mesh of agents who can collaborate on tasks and specialized tools and training. We are far from talking about chatbots, but I think that's been something that so many people are still doing, and we will need some of those. But we really have to up-level our thinking, especially when it comes to kind of the enterprise challenges that we see. And so, when you think about maximizing the business impact that AI agents can have, people's expectations are now very, very high. And so it's going to have to be better than, what I'm able to do today or with a peer of mine. We had a company building kind of a ride-along agent for salespeople and things like that. If it's not as good as your ride-along person, then it won't get the adoption. So how do we maximize and pick the spots where there's this ultimate business impact that we're able to have? And so when you scale this project in these, they're going to be talking to models. You have to be thinking about the cost as well. And so how can I get the most impact out of, for spending the least amount of money? Because these things are going to scale. So according to Gartner, 80% of organizations are increasing their AI investment, but only 9% are achieving measurable value. We are still early innings in this. So, a lot of organizations are starting to look for assurances and how they can deliver these products in production, but also seamlessly scale them in managing their cost effectively. It's a hard problem to solve, and we're trying to help as many folks solve it as possible. And lastly, and probably most importantly, data security and privacy. Safeguarding the sensitive information remains the top priority. So in a survey we did with AI decision makers last year, the top Gen AI concern was proprietary data leaking into foundational models. So organizations want to know how to protect their proprietary data when using these third-party AI models and ensuring that there's compliance with all the evolving data protections and regulations. So it's super important as we look at these three things in the enterprise, and that you're thoughtful. And again, that comes back to this balancing boldness with responsibility, not only for what you're working on and spending hours and resources building, but also how are you going to scale it cost effectively, and then ultimately making sure that everything is secure. So this is like just a Hugging Face agent leaderboard. This is one of those where you do want to be in the top left. And again, this talks about kind of the pricing and the model capabilities and things like that. We and a lot of other models, as I said, it's not just us. There's going to be a ton of different models, and there's going to be a lot of different models for different use cases that you will use. And so as you're building these agents and you're thinking about kind of the different ways, there's a lot of different scales to this. Do you want something that's just fast out of the box agent, or do you want to build something that's kind of on that lower right, which is a fully do-it-yourself agent development. And there's use cases internally and externally for every single one of these. So one of the ways we've thought about that is we've come up with a platform called Agent Space. And you can think of this as a reliable and secure home for all of your agents. We're going to have this massive influx of agents, and I think it's going to be similar to what we saw with SaaS. And so it's going to be easy to get agents. There's going to be kind of a shadow IT thing going on that will happen because, when you think about how do we best serve our employees, we need to make sure that we're giving them the best tools for the job. No one wants to be doing those joyless tasks when they can do that joyless task on their phone in 2 seconds. But if you aren't providing kind of the security capabilities and making this stuff available, people are going to look for someplace else. So we're hoping to help with that and provide kind of a governance structure and again, a house, a reliable and secure house for all your agents. And so when we think about this and how we get tasks done, we do think knowledge work is absolutely changing. So you'll be using AI to find different things in a multimodal context. You'll be understanding them and reasoning with them using the large language models. And then the action part is the most important part. The action is where you'll have those agents. And so you'll have multiple connectors here, and then all under that kind of security and infrastructure umbrella. And so we talked about this high code, low code. I'm going to skip past this, but this is part of what it looks like. And look, we won't be the only ones with this. There are some really exciting announcements at Microsoft Build. You're seeing OpenAI's Codex. We just had I/O yesterday. So there's a ton coming out in this space. And I think as you build your agent, you do want it to be able to show up in multiple marketplaces because your clients are going to be all over the place. This is ours. So we're going to be able to have an agent gallery to where folks can come and securely get agents from our marketplace, and then be able to administrator will be able to open those up for the people who want to use them, and maybe specific departments or only specific people. You're going to have full access and control and analytics around that. One of the agents that we came out with from DeepMind is our deep research agent. And so again, this is going to be able to leverage all of your internal systems based on connectors and do deep research based on internal and external data that you have. Another one that we came out with, again, which we hope will kind of superpower folks working and collaborating, is this idea generation agent. And you can think about this as, we've often used large language models to be kind of a brainstorming buddy. Think about this as kind of that brainstorming buddy on steroids and what it will do. And this thing will run for, like, depending on the objective you give it, for 2 hours. And we've seen some create, 90 plus ideas, and it will score and rank them in kind of like a March Madness tournament style for ideas. And I think this is where we get to kind of the business growth that could be, and kind of as you think about agents or even how to build them, using agents to come up with ideas will be something that is normalized in the context. And then lastly, building custom agents for yourself. This is going to be kind of low code, no code, and being able to build your own agents for your own employee for maybe that special task that you're trying to do. But again, all staying within the enterprise. So that's a little bit of how we're thinking about it. I have a friend, Connor Greenan, who I've been able to talk to recently. And if you haven't checked him out on LinkedIn, he's also got a company and consulting group, AI Mindset. And he talks about the paradigm of kind of the treadmill. It is awesome to have a treadmill, but if you don't run on it, you won't get in better shape. And so how often do our treadmills look like this, where there are clothes racks and hangers? And so don't make that kind of your agent. You have to also think about the context and behavior change that will be required for everybody to adopt your agent or your agent internally and really get the scale and effectiveness that we want to work with. And I do think it will be kind of an approach like this. There will be falling on our face in the beginning. We will start to get the hang of it and kind of be jogging. And I think we're starting to be in a jogging place. I think some people are falling on your face. Everybody's in their own journey. But then we're going to be sprinting hard. And ultimately, we get to a place like this where we're having a lot of fun with it and enjoying our agents. And our agents are, again, taking the joyless work out, and we're able to do more of the stuff that, we are built and designed to do that only, humans can. And so as I kind of wrap here, I wanted to give some ideas of what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing these 4 different approaches from companies as they're kind of embracing this agentic era. And there's a spectrum of adoption here. So the first is kind of this wait mode. And I say this is kind of cautiously optimistic. We are seeing people who are waiting, they're improving their current application or product, and they're kind of waiting to see what the market does. I would say this is absolutely dangerous. This is the riskiest place to be right now, is waiting and seeing. Again, we have to balance boldness and responsibility, but please do not wait. We need to kind of move into a place where you're in build mode and crafting that foundation, understanding and aligning on what are going to be that business differentiation for you and your company, both personally, internally and externally. And so we're starting to see a lot of people building. I would say that there's kind of like a quarter of people that fall into this category where they're starting to build, they're starting to test, they're again, doing those kind of production pilots with their agents. I would see, especially when we see these tech companies are leaning into deploy mode, where they're launching and they're optimizing. They're starting to release something into the market, gather information, performance, understand their pricing, get feedback. And in this deploy mode, you're now able to adjust your strategy, which we have to all stay flexible in this. And this is where, we're seeing companies start to test out pricing models. Do you price based on the user? Or do you price based on the job that it's doing? And also, can you quantify the value that your agent provides? I think that's going to be a huge question that needs to get resolved by 2025 as we think about pricing structures for 26. And lastly is this kind of growth mode where folks are starting to multiply and monetize on the agents they've built. And I see Domo going into kind of this growth mode where they're starting to build, they're starting to deploy. And I'm sure a lot of others are on this call are thinking about this. But again, the biggest part of this is being able to quantify the value. And so I guess I'll wrap with this, where I started a little bit, is we are going to be the winners here. I would ask people to be optimistic. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom around, hey, is this going to take my job? And, I think there's the adage of like, AI won't take your job. Someone using AI will take your job. I think that it continues to be true, to where we need to embrace this technology, try it. And I would just say, stay flexible, adapt, learn, be curious. It's the only way to win in this new agentic era. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. It's been a thrill to be with you all today, and certainly appreciate the time and Domo for creating this space for all of us.
Awesome. Huge thank you to Jim for helping us out here. Amazing keynote. Jim, one quick question for you. There was a comment in there that asked about the stat that you shared about Gartner. I think it was 80% are investing and 9% are doing it right. Can you reiterate that one for us?
Yeah, I'd have to go back. But yeah, I think what Gartner's, saying to us is that a lot of people are starting to, this comes back to kind of the value of, that people are starting to see. So 80% of people are putting an agent out there. 9% are able to kind of quantify and capture value from it right now, or be able to see a return on that investment. So a lot of it's people trying stuff out and getting stuff out into the market. And again, I think there's a couple of things that factor into that, which is the adoption. How many people are adopting your agent, using it the way it's intended, and getting the results that are intended. And I think that's the piece that is still in flux. So it was, yeah, only 9% are seeing measurable value right now out of the 80%.
That's perfect. Well, everyone remember, these will be available on demand. Amazing content from Jim. We're so grateful for our partnership with Google and excited for the future. Jim, thanks for spending time with us today.
All right. Take care, Mark. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a good one. Bye. Okay, next up, we're going to keep moving. We still have so much really fantastic content to go through over the next several hours. So next up is our good friend Kevin, who's a VP of research at BARC, who's just an incredible analyst firm who I've loved seeing some of the great research that he's done. We got to spend some time with Kevin out at our recent show, Domopalooza, and they're leaning forward. BARC's doing some really cool stuff. So Kevin's going to discuss with us now this shift from AI as a tool to AI as a teammate. And so you're going to want to take quite a few notes. Kevin is super fantastic and great at this stuff. So with that, Kevin, break it down. Talk us through how Agentic AI isn't just there to assist us. It's here to help you act and to help you change everything. Take it away, my friend.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Really glad to be here. And there are my slides. Really enjoyed Jim's presentation and enjoyed Domopalooza recently with Domo getting a view of the future. We live in very interesting times. And before I start, I'll say that I was an economics minor and I'm a history buff. And if we sort of put this into the big picture, over the last few centuries, we've seen great breakthrough innovations. So there was the steam engine, the internal combustion engine, airplanes, more recently, personal computers and mobile. And I think that AI is most definitely on a same level in terms of the disruptive nature and the ability to increase economic productivity, which in the end is the reason that we're better off than our grandparents and they were better off than their grandparents. With that said, if we look at those technologies, it did take time to figure out how to use these things effectively in order to produce higher value and in order to improve living levels. And so I think it is going to take some time for us to realize the future as we take advantage of these assistants, these partners that have prodigy level cerebral power. So what I'm hoping to do today is talk about pragmatic steps, where we are today with adoption, where corporate expectations are, and then what we can do in order to incrementally build on existing people and process and technology in order to start to reshape business in a way that, as Jim was saying, balances risk and reward, balances the upside and potentially the downside as well. So let me move ahead here. All right, I'll start with a definition of agents for the near term. And the desire here is to have agents that can take care of business. They can decide, they can act, they can learn, teach themselves, and get things done. So agents respond to human prompts. They plan and execute sequences of tasks. They start to delegate actions to other agents. You can have hierarchies, to tools and to models. Agents designed and implemented well, I think in the future will collaborate with one another, both within organizations and across organizations. So you can have interesting scenarios in which, as a consumer, you tell your agent, your shopping agent, I'm willing to pay this price for this product that meets X characteristics. I'm not willing to pay anything higher. And so go out to these shopping sites and keep an eye on things over the holiday shopping season. And when you see a price that comes to the level I want and a product that meets my requirements, please buy it for me. And so that agent could go out and interact with markets of agents in order to do that. That's a pretty cool, compelling view of the future. To do all this, agents need to consume data from platforms, from applications. Jim was talking about agent-to-agent protocol, which reduces friction for agents to talk to each other. He also talked about model context protocol, which is out from Anthropic, and that's fast gaining credibility as a standard for giving agents instant access to data, very current data from SaaS applications, from tools and so forth. then you want the agent to have the ability to reflect on the suitability of its decisions, of its actions and responses, and based on its reflection, go back and iterate. So it's going to learn and it's going to iterate. We're a lot of parents on the call. We want our children to learn from their actions, look at the consequences, and iterate based on that. And that's very much what we want agents to do. For example, an agent could go back and say, well, based on the what my evaluator model is telling me about the suitability of this response to a user prompt or this action I took, I'm going to adjust the content that I pull up as part of my retrieval augmented generation workflow, my RAG workflow, and I'm going to enrich my prompts in the future with slightly different data so that I make different decisions and take more suitable actions. I think that there's a lot of justified excitement about the ability for full autonomy for these agents to go out and act as autonomous workforces. The reality for the near term, I'm sort of a pragmatist, is that humans are going to have to keep a close eye on things in the design, in the management, and the learning and iteration phase. And so we're going to have to make sure that we have human monitoring, inspection, approval, governance, and so forth. All right, so where are we with adoption and expectations? The rollout status, this is based on our latest survey data here at BARC, is that about a third of companies say that they're in production with agents, and more of those are in full production than limited production. Another significant chunk are piloting, they're experimenting, and only a few, not many companies say they don't have plans for agents. So I think everyone recognizes very much the incredible upside here. I think that in addition, a lot of this agent adoption so far, in all likelihood, is organizations using agents that are rolled out as features of commercial tools. And that's fine. That's a good place to start. It's a good way to mitigate the risk and have agents operating in more governed workflows. Now, we have additional data here from Ernst & Young that just came out that says most companies, 50% say most of their AI will be autonomous within 24 months. That's pretty ambitious. That's pretty interesting. It's also, the flip side is that, most AI right now is not really fully autonomous. It's going to need human inspection, interactions, and so forth. 92% expect to increase their AI spending over the next 12 months. And 43% say that more than half of their AI budget is allocated for agents. This is all goodness. This is the right thing to be doing in order to capture and achieve the future. But if we look at what's really required or where they're going to put these things to work, we see that organizations are using agents in order to, one, stay competitive. And these numbers are a little truncated here. I'll tell you, it's 59%. Help customers, it's over half. If it's a majority, about 2/3, and then drive strategy. So agents are definitely getting a seat at the table. They're moving from the assistant to the partner realm in terms of what we're hoping to trust them to do. And you can see a range of use cases in which agents are starting to be implemented. Cybersecurity, software development is an interesting one, because with software development, you have programmers that are quite skilled, and inherently they're early adopters because they're often building the very latest software products for the rest of the world to use. And software developers are getting some real gains using not just co-pilots, but agents that will go out and build code for them, that will validate code, inspect it, and will help put it into production. Now, the catch here, and with all these use cases, is that you do need an expert programmer in most cases who can, either using their business expertise or their technical expertise, validate what they're getting back from the agent, from the GenAI model within the agent. And so they're going to need to make sure that they have code that is responsible and going to produce reliable results. We've also seen early adoption from marketing and sales and this makes a ton of sense. I've been a writer my whole life and understand well the challenges of writer's block. And I think that agents that are intelligent and do more than just ChatGPT, but actually based on your content and curated material and curated prompts and so forth, are going to help you generate first drafts of content. And by adding the human element, you can differentiate yourself in the market. With sales, you can have a coach that's going to help you with pitches, that's going to evaluate how you interact with customers. And again, these are agents that are trained and prompted with your own domain-specific data. Financial processes, I think, is a fascinating one because we've had the notion of robotic process automation for some time now that will, as the term denotes, automate workflows. There are all sorts of workhorse aspects of operations that we need to streamline. Financial payment processes, invoicing, insurance claims, all kinds of things, mortgage applications, and so forth. The more you can automate that with humans overseeing it, the more you can increase productivity, the more you can increase what you're achieving in terms of business value. So human resources is another one. I think this one is fascinating because on the one hand, you can have agents that start to perform some of the tactical work related to human resources, helping recruit or do initial screening of candidates, helping onboard new employees, and so forth. But there's also the, I think, compelling opportunity for human resources to play a very strategic role in figuring out how to start to manage manage agents like humans, and empower and train humans to manage agents as well. Supply chain management is critical in these dynamic times with various geopolitical factors at play. We all know that the landscape can change very quickly for organizations that are running global businesses, and supply chain management can help companies respond to that in a more agile fashion, putting agents to work. Specialized research and product management are also compelling use cases. So these are some of the ways in which we're seeing some of those early production and some of the experimental use cases as well. All right, so this is a bit of an eye chart. I'm a big believer that you achieve innovation not with big bang light bulb moments where you tear out everything, you wipe the slate clean, and you start over, but rather you incrementally build on what you have. In my view, that's what happened with the personal computing boom. Personal computers, bit by bit, started to appear on every desk, and over time, you had an acceleration in output and productivity. Similar with the internet, a lot of people got on, but they took a while to figure out how to take advantage of it. So if we're looking at agents, agentic AI needs to be governed, and you need to build on the architecture that you have. So I won't go through each element here, but obviously most organizations have some applications, some data and workloads on premises. They might have some in a private cloud, and then a fair amount in the public cloud. And new stuff tends to be spun up on the public cloud. They're using data warehouses, lake houses, and so forth, graph databases now to organize and search, query, retrieve this data. They have a data management layer where various tools from Domo and others are helping extract, transform, and load, build master data. They want to catalog, centralize all their metadata, and then observe the performance of data pipelines, observe the quality of inputs to models, and of course, govern by controlling access, by enforcing authorization, authentication, by supporting audits, and so forth. So these are all familiar aspects of a data architecture, and I think you need to have those fundamentals in place in order to have the models and the applications that take advantage of them, including agentic applications, perform in a reliable and trustworthy way. The reality right now, unfortunately, is that about a third of companies, potentially more, don't trust the inputs to their models or the outputs to their models. So that just underscores the importance of modernizing and sharpening what you can do at the storage and the data management layer, not just with structured data, but with unstructured and semi-structured data, because documents and video and audio and images become so much more important in the AI realm. So if we move up to the model layer, we can see what's happening here is that we've got a range of increasingly sophisticated models. Right now, given the spirit of the times and the power of Gen AI language models tend to suck the oxygen out of the room and get all the attention. But the reality is that I think most Gen AI models are going to exist alongside predictive machine learning models, other types of analytics models that support them, because they all have different value and different levels of accuracy and precision. You can produce richer outputs if you're using multiple model types. So the models can not just assess business situations and describe them, they can predict what might happen next. They can prescribe actions, recommend user actions or application actions, and then actually generate content. That's the range of models that in turn are going to contribute to applications. Now, the applications start to take some pretty interesting actions. And a lot of the verbs I have here are targeted to agentic applications. They are using a user interface. They're using tools, application logic, and a scheduler to orchestrate all sorts of activities. They're perceiving their environment. They're reasoning about what's happening, making a decision or a series of decisions, and then executing sequences of actions, and engaging. So delivering output back to users, delivering output to one another, to other applications, and they're collaborating and sharing data and insights. So that's a pretty sophisticated range of options. All this is tied together. There's sort of a lubricant and a glue here. The lubricant is that you need APIs to stitch things together. You need metadata that's going to help inform the types of data and the types of elements that need to work together. And of course, protocols such as agent-to-agent protocol, which Jim talked about, and model context protocol as well. So you need both lubricant and glue. And I think those three elements play both roles. So this is a complex chart, and I put it here in order to emphasize a couple things. One is a lot of it's old and familiar. You need to get those elements right before you build on top of it. Two is you should look for integrated solutions from vendors. Domo's high on this list. The more you can look at commercial solutions that simplify how all this comes together, the better, because there are a lot of companies coming out with agents, starter agents, development frameworks, and so forth that help you automate these pieces and put them together so you don't have to do everything custom from scratch. So what are the must-have characteristics of a modern AI architecture that enables this? Good news is, again, these are a lot of familiar characteristics that have been true for folks who grew up in the SQL world, folks in the data and AI realm. They understand the value of these things. You want something that's integrated, that unifies the new and the old elements in order to enrich AI and automate processes. You want modularity. Data products are a big part of this. There are other ways in which you want modular pipelines, modular scripts, modular models, and so forth. The more you can have standard, interchangeable, reusable parts, the more you can enable a flexible and scalable changes to support your evolving needs. You need open support, A2A, MCP, a lot of different standards and formats and protocols are going to enable you to have to support that interchangeability. So you have compatible systems, you have mobile systems and interoperability across ecosystems. Governance is absolutely critical. As I said, most organizations, about a third of companies don't really trust their model inputs right now. That's a problem. So you need to control your access, monitor quality of inputs, and enforce compliance with internal policies and external regulatory requirements. AI-assisted co-pilots really help. Agents help. I'll talk about that as well, to automate tasks for data integration, analysis, and visualization. And if you take sort of a product mindset, for example, with data products, you can streamline access and enhance AI outputs. The sharing is critical here because I think a lot of organizations are going to start to share these elements and have them collaborate across the boundaries of the enterprise. I talked about the scenario before. You have robots going out within marketplaces robots or agents. And multimodal is critical. If we look back to the fundamental discipline of data management, it really matters. You need these pipelines that will do extract, transform, and load, extract, load, and transform, change data capture, streaming, virtualization. You want the ability to flexibly support multiple options in order to bring together and curate rich sets of diverse data as inputs to these models. Okay, so I tend to view this as we have teams of people that have been doing things for some time. In order to take advantage of agentic AI, you need to help those three teams, AI teams, application developer teams, and data teams, figure out how to work together, because each of them are fundamentally managing a life cycle. You have the data ops life cycle, where you're configuring, monitoring, and optimizing pipelines to support feature engineering. You've got the model ops life cycle, where data scientists are refining features, training and testing models, phasing them into production. And then the DevOps life cycle as well, where DevOps engineers and application developers are designing, coding, testing, they're deploying and tuning applications, especially agentic applications. So those data engineers, the data scientists, and the developers need to teach one another, learn from one another, and help one another, because ultimately those three life cycles are integrated and iterative. Ultimately, you have three types of things: models, applications, and data. You're preparing, you're building, and then you're deploying and orchestrating them. And I think that we're already seeing a blurring in the lines. The skill sets that are required for data engineers often involve some machine learning engineering, often involve some data science. Data scientists are doing more work of data engineers, and so on. The developers need to get more savvy in both these realms. So again, vendors are going to make this stuff easier by integrating pieces, and they're going to reduce the technical expertise, the complexity of synchronizing these life cycles. But as a starting point, as you think about putting agents to work on your business workflows, you want to think about these three domains. And you want to think about how the teams and the models can collaborate and synchronize. So there's a symbiotic relationship of AI with other domains. AI helps manage data. In addition to having data management, support AI. And so Domo is obviously intimately involved here. Our surveys show that when we ask them, what aspects of data management would you like to have agents engage in for you? And we've got leaders. I'll talk more about how we define those. They're essentially doing cross-enterprise AI programs, are very interested in having agents manage data quality. That's a pretty high level of confidence, pretty interesting. Data integration and documentation and classification and so forth. And you can see that followers, the folks who are being a little more ad hoc and haphazard in their adoption of AI, they're also very interested in these things, but not in as high levels. So the smart teams are looking at ways to manage data with agents, which has a symbiotic relationship, because if they can manage data more effectively, they can support agents that do all kinds of other things. Data engineers are exactly the right people to help with agents, because they are stuck between exploding demand for data and exploding supply of data, and they really need help. Agentic tools can complete tasks, recommend options to folks like data engineers. The top use cases, as I said, are data quality, data integration, and classification. Agents, in my view, to reiterate an earlier point, still need expert human oversight to maintain governance standards. And I think that'll be true for the foreseeable future. But when you have skilled people, you're going to make them that much more efficient. They're going to get work done faster as they reconcile that explosion in data supply and data demand. All right. I mentioned AI leaders, and I want to drill down a little bit more on these folks. AI leaders, which our surveys show are about 21% of the market, are leaders because they're doing things right. They're approaching AI in a way that shows real strategy and a real cross-enterprise programmatic discipline. They're establishing governance standards. They're thinking hard about the architecture, especially the diagram I showed earlier. They're looking at ways to ensure what they do is legal and regulatory compliant. They're doing all these things. They've established real executive leadership for AI, often at the CEO level. These are the folks to monitor and learn from because they move faster and they're achieving better results initially with AI. 35% of them have agents in production. They have stronger governance, higher confidence in privacy, compliance, data lineage, and access controls. They also have more of a cloud-first mindset. All organizations, I think, that were born before 2010 still have some stuff on premises, and that won't change, but they're more likely to manage more of what they do on the cloud. These leaders also invest in solutions to tackle big challenges. So they are investing in upskilling and reskilling their workers because we do find that AI skills and gaps in skill sets are a top obstacle to AI success. You need to train folks to use agents effectively. 49% of these leaders are applying AI-driven automation to data management. They're using agents for data management, as an example. And 42% are consolidating and modernizing their tool sets. Again, look for those solutions that can reduce the level of complexity and reduce the labor involved in those myriad elements of your architecture. All right, AI leaders, I think, are also bold. And so here are two recent headlines of established traditional firms that are showing high confidence in their ability to innovate with AI. MasterCard has unveiled Agent Pay, which is providing the ability to have agentic assistance for merchants, for others to assist payment processes. That's great. It'll also help shoppers figure out what they want to buy for various scenarios. And then you can have the agents process the transaction. And so if you think about the level of confidence required for this, MasterCard's crown jewels, it's the reason it exists and people trust it, and it's a Fortune 100 company, is that people trust it to process payments so that you can hand someone a credit card and not even think about the fact that it's going to process. And now they're putting that in the hands of autonomous agents. I think that's fascinating, and I think it's going to be an interesting bellwether to see their success or what else happens, what they learned from, because that can be an early example of leadership for the rest to learn from. Moderna is another very interesting example because what they've done, and this happened late last year, but just came out in the press recently, is they promoted their chief human resources officer to take over IT. And that just shows an incredible forward-thinking mindset about how you can have agents that are effectively people that need to be managed. And most importantly, you need to figure out how to empower your people, who in the end are your number one asset, in my view. I think that will not change. You need to empower people to use agents and manage agents effectively. So that shows a real vision that you're going to have to think creatively about how people and agents get along with each other. So you have these prodigies that can be assistants, but also partners in different business processes and overall innovation. So I'll conclude with 5 points here about agentic innovation and guiding principles. As I said, organizations have existed for a long time. 10 years, 15 years from now, we're still all going to get out of bed, take a shower, go to work, try to feed our families, and that won't change. But we do need to incrementally build on what we do and embrace higher levels of automation and intelligence. That's been true for decades. It's going to continue to be true, even more so with agents and the age of agentic AI. But what you want to do is start with a quick win. From a business perspective, you want to look for a small project, ideally targeting a proven point of pain to demonstrate value and secure executive support. Our research is showing that most organizations who are investing in AI now have a primary business objective of achieving efficiency, improving efficiency, reducing cost. That's a good defensive way to start. You've got pain, you've got overly manual processes, improve that with agents and look for a beachhead of success and to kind of expand from there. The second point, automate data management. Look at ways you can adopt AI tools, agents for data quality, for lineage tracking, and the ways you can orchestrate across the data and the application domains to support that cross lifecycle collaboration that I talked about. I think adopting a factory design can make a lot of sense because you've got these modular elements, ideally, that can be swapped in, swapped out, reused, adjusted. Think of Legos. The more you can have Legos that are making up these different processes, the better. It'll support future iteration, which is absolutely critical to success. Investing in AI talent, maybe that should be number one. As I said, a top obstacle, I think number two behind data quality, which was number one, a top obstacle to AI success is investing in talent or the lack of AI skills right now. And so you need to hire and train and retrain workers that have AI expertise. You want to foster collaboration. You want to establish a center of excellence that can help evangelize best practices, showcase wins to the rest of the organization. And in my view, a lot of these AI skills are not about going deep on technical stuff like traditional roles. They're often about going broad because you want people that'll think creatively about how to stitch together different processes with AI-driven workflows. So you want people who can think outside the box. That's an ideal AI skill set. Final point here is follow and learn from the leaders. I've mentioned a few. Our surveys show that they're a minority, they're moving fast, and I think we can all learn from them. And to build on a point Jim made, you can't afford to do nothing. So learn from folks who are moving ahead quickly and take some methodical steps to benefit from their experiences, their wins and their losses, so that you can start to move incrementally towards the future. So Mark, that's what I have. I'm going to hand back over to you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Great topic, and I look forward to learning from the future speakers.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin. If you haven't checked out some of the recent AI research that Kevin and the BARC team have done, go check it out. It's really stellar stuff. I love the idea, Kevin, that Agentic AI isn't just here to assist, it's here to help you act.
Yes.
And that legitimately changes everything. So thanks again. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, everyone, we're going to take a really quick break. And when I say break, I don't mean walk away. I mean, I'm going to talk for a minute, so I apologize. But the people we have coming up next, my good friend Mohammed, who you all know at this point, he's a bit of a celebrity, and he's brought someone who I might even say is smarter than Mohammed. Sorry, Mohammed, but I said it. So you're going to hear from Mohammed and Juan in just a minute. But before we do that, as you know, we had a whole bunch of people up for awards as part of this. We had really 4 key areas that we focused on for these Agentic AI Innovation Awards. The first area was all around AI thought leaders. So these are, for example, visionaries who are shaping conversations, pushing the boundaries of what AI can do, not just in theory, but also in the real world. The community showed up really big for this. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people who voted for a big group and nominated a whole bunch of people. Jenny, let's go ahead and put up that slide. The winners of this AI thought leaders judged by the community were these 4. Big congrats to Soumya from Involve AI, Kate from Datacated, David from Module Q, and Ari from Databricks. Massive congratulations. Thank you for all you're doing to lead out from an AI perspective. Those are the 4 winners from an AI thought leadership perspective. Next on the list were the AI strategists. These are for executives that are building the roadmap, aligning the org, and turning strategy into tangible results. Again, the community spoken. The 4 big winners here were Peta from OneShot.ai, Tari from DKAI Lab, Kristen from Data Moves Me, and John Bradshaw from Codebase. Congratulations to all of those from the AI strategist category. Next on the list from the AI catalyst. This was all about hands-on heroes that are making it happen, automating chaos, connecting the dots, proving the power of AI one workflow at a time. On that list, Amit from Accenture, Nick from Snowflake, Rebecca, who's a tech marketing leader and a Forbes contributor, and Jan from Meta. Massive congratulations. Thank you, and keep leading out, please. Last but certainly not least, the AI luminaries. These are for what we like to call the data whisperers, who turn that noise into insight, They spot trends before the dashboard even loads. And the winners of that, Kwin from Expeditors, Anderson from the University of Campinas, Vivek from IBM, and Fern from TDWI. So thankful for what these people and individuals are doing to lead out. Really amazing things, and we are grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As part of that, and again, I know you're trying to say, Mark, stop talking. I want to hear Mohammed and Juan. I know that, but I still have the mic, so I'm going to take just a couple of other quick seconds. We just barely released, as you know, we've got some really incredible keynoters and still more to come. But we also just barely made a drop of content with some really incredible stuff coming from AWS, from Chris Willis, our Chief Design Officer, from Patrick from Hakoda, from Flo, Vishaka, and Matt on our Domo team, from Naveen Kumar, the CEO of GWC Data. There is incredible content that is available right now. So go check it out on the site, but maybe do it after you hear Juan and Mohammed, because they've got some really incredible things to talk about. These are two big thinkers, Mohammed and Juan. I haven't met Juan, but Mohammed sings his praises, so he must be pretty amazing. Mohammed is our Chief Data Officer over here at Domo, has done amazing things at Domo, has done amazing things at a whole bunch of other customers and companies before this. And I'm excited for them to walk through how the idea of the right data foundation turns good AI into great AI. So with that, Juan, welcome. Mohammed, thank you, my friend. Take it away.
Thank you, Mark. And it's my pleasure to introduce Juan Sequeira, who's one of my best friends. He's also principal scientist at Data.World and leads the AI lab at Data.World. He's got his PhD from the University of Texas, Austin. He's been one of the folks that I go to almost on a weekly basis to learn from. He's very well connected in the industry. You've likely seen some of his posts, some of the research he's done on improving AI accuracy in his LLMs. So Juan, it's an honor to be and share a stage with you today.
It's a pleasure thank you for having me, Mohammed. I'm really, really excited. Thank you. I just want to kind of preface this as Mohammed and I have known each other for a long time. And one of the things I also do host is our podcast, Catalog and Cocktails, the honest, no BS, non-salesy data podcast. So I really want this to be an honest, no BS conversation. And basically it's like one of the phone conversations we'll have every week, and we'll let people, folks, listen to our phone conversations that we have on a Sunday morning or something like that. So.
All right. Well, let's keep it honest, no BS. Let's get right to it. Juan,
Yep.
Look, AI just keeps getting better and better and better. Like we see the LLMs, they're just improving. We're getting better results from them. However, when we think about pointing those LLMs to our structured data, that data from Salesforce, that data from work, that data from the different systems we have, there's still a lot of inaccuracies. Like, why is that?
Yeah, so let's go back. So first of all, getting terminology, everybody's now talking about AI, and I think the AI is Gen AI, specifically talking about large language models, right? So, and the word is language, right? So I think the low-hanging fruit that everybody's been focusing on has been first on text, on unstructured documents, and then you're seeing, I want to be able to go chat with my documents, and that's kind of, we've seen things around RAG coming along when it comes to the unstructured world. And that's always been kind of the low-hanging fruit, starting to kind of hit the ground running with that. And when you, in that world, it's kind of already hard to kind of say, hey, how do I know if this is a correct answer or not? There's already a little bit of ambiguity in that way, but we've been able to kind of hit the ground running with that. And that's the first step that everybody's been doing. So all the LLM applications have usually been started with unstructured. And then a couple of years ago, I mean, when LLMs kind of started, people say, well, this can now write SQL, right? Can generate all these queries, and we can go, and now I can go do text to SQL, which I remind people is like, the whole text to SQL and being able to kind of chat with data is not a new thing. People have been doing this for 30, 40 years. It's kind of the grand challenge in computer science since the beginning. And I think what we started seeing is that there's a lot of context that is implicit and is implicit It's therefore it's not explicit and it's not written down some places, such that the LLMs don't have that. They don't understand what that context is. And I think what happens is when people want to start chatting with their data, they have the expectation that they're going to be able to kind of get all these accurate responses, but then they realize that, hey, not even humans understand what this stuff means sometimes, right? So like, for example, you take about data around the typical question, how many customers do we have? How many policies do we have? And so forth. Like not even humans sometimes agree on that stuff. And why? Because we're not even kind of coordinating on what the meanings of these things are. What is the semantics of what these stuff means? And then why would an LLM actually know about this stuff? Why would we think an LLM is actually going to come up with the right thing? Now, let's remember that LLMs are trained on everything that's out there on the web. And so it has the kind of general context of the world, but it does not have the context of your business. And kind of the whole approach of like people talk about RAG, right? The retrieval augmented generation is to be able to provide some context, but I just don't want to be able to provide any type of context. I want to be able to provide context that's actually has been well governed, it's been well defined, such that now the LLMs can be able to take that stuff and be able to kind of use that context to be able to go define queries that we know are going to have higher accuracy around that. Now, but part of this accuracy, I want to say, it's not just about accuracy. It's also about being able to provide explainability. I want to be able to show my work around that stuff, and I think that's where this context is important. And I think what the shift now is for the organizations to start thinking, it's time to invest in this context, which is something that we have kind of swept underneath the rug. And it's like, oh, it's that data janitorial work, that cleanup work. That cleanup work, that's actually trying to define what is the meaning of your business. Treat it with the respect it deserves. And now AI, these large language models, are kind of forcing us to say, hey, I should actually, treat this context with the respect it deserves.
So let's get into context in just a moment. I just want to maybe play back something that I heard, which is the large language models are good at unstructured data, but when it comes to structured data, they don't have that much context on it, and so they don't give you necessarily the right results. And so what I think in the real world, I think what people do is they try to point their LLM to a table, and that table, they don't even have a description of the table. The table has different column names. The LLM will try to guess what those column names are, and it will try to answer the question, and it'll guess, and you'll get a guess as an answer, and the answer isn't that great. And then it gets even further complicated when you have multiple tables that need to get joined together, and then you ask it a more complex question. It's going to use whatever context it has, which literally are just the table name and the column name to try to do something, but it doesn't know anything else beyond it. And so in order for those LLMs to really have better accuracy on top of that structured data, you got to feed it context. You got to feed it knowledge, as you described it, context and knowledge. Okay, tell me, like, what is the context and knowledge that should be provided? And like, are there different levels of context and knowledge that should be provided?
So now we're starting to hear more and more again semantic layers and knowledge graphs, right? So this is specifically the type of context. So to get let's get into the details around these things. We'll talk about like how the vendor landscape is changing. So actually, if I step back, like the research that we put out early on was almost 2 years ago was saying, if we actually start defining this context in the form of ontologies and using open standards such as OWL.
Okay. One. Honest, no BS. What the heck is an ontology?
Okay, well, the ontology, very simple. We're just talking about their conceptual models, right? Just the way how you would be modeling things on the whiteboard, right? So let's talk about you have orders, you have customers, you have products, you have order lines, right? An order has a set of order lines, and order lines have products, right? An order is shipped to a customer purchases an order, right? That conceptual model, that is your ontology, that is a semantic layer. Let's just stick the honest, no BS, it's all the same stuff.
It's just a visual representation of how different concepts connect to and are related to each other.
Exactly, in a particular domain. I just described one for the retail, right? How would you describe insurance? You have policies, you have claims, you have coverages, right? You have expenses, right? So you start modeling these things, and this is something that you want to have. You come to some agreement around this. Because we were asking a question and we want to be able to have agreement on the language around this. So what we saw was that if I actually invest in be able to create that semantic layer, that ontology, right, that conceptual model, right, I'm using these terms interchangeably. They're all kind of pretty much the same thing. I provide that, and now I give that semantic layer to the LLM. And literally, if you think about it, like from the experiments that we did, was a very simple 0-shot prompt. Here is the following ontology, and you pass it to that. In the experiments that we used the experiments that we did, we actually did using the open web standards of OWL. OWL is a web ontology, which is standard to represent some of these ontologies. We passed that in, saying, now write a query, the answer to the following question. And it would write a query in the languages that we used was Sparkle, which is the graph query language for knowledge graphs. And we tested that compared to, here is just a SQL DDL that has zero context. I just passed in the SQL DDL. Didn't give any extra work and generate a SQL query. When we started doing those comparisons, it was 3 times more accurate just by passing in the ontology, by passing in all that semantic work. Now, what's important here to say is like the accuracy improved because we did the semantic work. We did that context. We did that metadata work up front. And because we did that, we passed that context that the LLM was able to go use and was able to now generate queries that were much higher accuracy. Versus if I just didn't have any context, I would kind of let the LLM kind of do as much as the work that they
try to figure it out on its own.
So that was, and this was 2 years ago. I mean, the entire industry has evolved around that stuff. I mean, 2 years ago, nobody was talking about semantic layers. There's none of these big.
Well, you've been talking about semantic layers for as long as I know you, but yeah, I mean, besides you, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been talking about this stuff for 20 years now. I'm like, no,
Okay,
I'm like,
years, yeah.
now everybody is now finally realizing, oh, there is a reason why I should be investing in this. So one of those reasons is AI, and I think there's a lot more other reasons, but now that's kind of the thing that everybody's really attracted to. So good.
Yeah. So Juan, so like your research on that 3x accurate, it got picked up pretty widely, right?
Yeah.
Very well cited. I think people even try to replicate that even outside of knowledge graphs. They try to. Were the results also quite similar? Just feeding in some level of context improved accuracy substantially?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I always remind people: science is a social process. Part of the social process, you put this out there, and you want other people to replicate, to reproduce the results, to validate the results, and we saw that completely. So I think that was one of the things that was really exciting, is saying like, we saw these results, and then other people got really excited, and they replicated themselves in their own particular systems with their own particular technologies, and they saw the exact same kind of, they reproduce the evidence, right? And I think that's why you're seeing now today everybody talking about semantic layers and be able to go invest in this. So that's so this is really the call to the entire industry, is saying, if you want AI, generative AI, large language models, to succeed in the enterprise and get out of POC hell, you must have a strategy where metadata semantics is part of your is a first-class citizen. Otherwise, you're just going to be building just apps that are going to look cool and they're going to look demo great, but they're not going to go out into production because
they're not going to scale.
They're not going to go scale, and not just from a size and how big the thing is. It's like you want to be able to provide that trust. You want to be able to provide the accuracy is generated trust. And in addition to that, I want to also to provide the evidence. Show me your work. How did you get there? Like, okay, how did you answer that question? It was because I used these concepts, and these concepts are mapped to this data, and this has been governed by these stewards from these departments, and the last time it was checked was so time. Like, that's all the evidence that you want to be able to go provide if people really want to go in. Like, this is why things like data lineage, effectively, this is the lineage of all the data all the way back to the particular concept. So this is the shift, right. And I'll argue that if you are not investing in the semantics and the context, you are going to be behind, because your competitors are the ones who are doing that. They're going to get ahead of you.
Okay, so Juan, so then I'm going to play slightly devil's advocate here, because
please do.
I've been hearing about data governance for as long as I've been in the data space, and it's been, data governance in some cases it can put you to sleep, right? It can put me to sleep for sure.
100%.
And I'm hearing you
100%.
say, what I'm kind of hearing you say is get your data governance together. So now part of it is there's different levels, right, of data governance, right? And so, like, does this mean we got to stand up a data governance team? They got to spend all their hours, time and day. Like, what are the different levels that organizations should be thinking about, and what return are they going to get on that? And is there overkill here? Quite frankly, are there organizations that are investing so much into this, they're not even getting the value because it's collapsing of its own weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm going to say something. I wonder who's here's the phrase. Data governance is cool now.
Okay.
And I'd argue that it's really not just data governance, it's data governance and enablement. So let's put the word governance aside. And right now, what you're seeing your executives, the board, the leaders saying, I want to be able to go solve all these problems, and I know that I'm seeing how AI can go solve this, but I need to have my data inside of the part of these solutions. So that's what executives are asking for right now. Now, imagine I go off and I'm like, look, I got your data. I'm going to give you the data you can trust. I'm hearing you. I hear what data you need. I got you. I got your back. No worries about it. I want you to go focus on the amazing applications you're building to go solve those critical problems. I got it. And if you have any issues, because issues will come up, I got it. I'll be on top of you. People want that. Like they want to be. I want to have that person, that team that I can go trust and be on top of. That team right now. That's what I'm going to call the governance and enablement, and that's encompassing like now the data engineerings, right? That's the data stewards, right? That's the people all doing that data work, and we should be focusing on enabling people to go do amazing things. And I think traditionally governance has always been that very dull, boring thing you do on the side, because it's kind of been this ivory tower. Oh, I'm running these policies, and you should be following these things, and people are like. That's why we have shadow IT. We have like, I don't care. You don't want to invite those governance people to the table because they're the naysayers. So I'm going to try to find the ways to go do around that. Like that's what we've always done, because we treat governance as kind of that ivory tower one, and second is like the focus just on compliance and making sure bad things don't happen.
The data police, right? Like you
don't. So I always ask people it's like brakes in a car. Why do we have brakes in a car? Ask yourself right now. Usually when I ask this question, everybody says, just slow down. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But you also have brakes in a car so you can drive fast safely. And I think we have forever been saying, I want to make sure bad things don't happen. Literally have stuff. Look, if you want to make sure bad things don't happen, make sure nobody freaking touches your data. Bad things never going to happen. But then no good things are going to happen. And you want them to happen, especially now at a time. So I think we want to be, I'm not saying forget about the compliance stuff. We just need to find that balance. And I think the successes that I'm seeing are ones where you are here stating the obvious, doing the data work that's tied to some very specific business value, right? And understanding what is like the minimal viable governance that is needed around that.
Okay, minimal viable governance.
And do small, right? Iterate. I mean, I'm saying the obvious, right? Don't boil the ocean. Start small, iterate. But sometimes we have to say the obvious over and over again.
So there's something that's also changed, I'd say, in the last couple of years too, is that this movement towards data products. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing you describe too is embed governance into the product, because data products are focused around creating value for specific stakeholders, for specific domains. Boil governance into that versus have governance being a separate thing. Like make it really
100%.
Make it actionable, and start with the basics. So I'm interested to hear if you're seeing examples of organizations that are successfully kind of going through this journey.
Yeah, the ones who are succeeding on this journey are I think people are now dangling AI as the carrot, right? And they're realizing like, you want this cool, valuable AI, application problem solving stuff, perfect. But if we really want this to go solve, I need you to go do these governance things, right? Which there's still work to be done there, but you're dangling this opportunity, this carrot around that, and people start embedding it into their particular workflows already, right? So you really want to have embedded governance by design from the beginning, and not the afterthought, and not like somebody else has to go check the work that I'm doing. So a couple of like the tactics that I'm seeing a lot around this. Number one is, again, the obvious thing. You're doing something that is tied to a particular business value, right? That you know exactly what are the business opportunities, how this is a revenue generating opportunity, how this is a cost saving opportunity, this is tied to your top level business objectives, OKRs, KPIs, whatever, right? And you want to make that as direct as possible. So that's number one. You should be able to know, like, how is this saving money? How is this making money? And what happens if we don't do this today? How much money are we leaving on the table? Like, you should be able to go answer these questions very specifically. Number two, another aspect that I'm seeing is a great to start off with is actually start with a data set product, whatever you want to call that that is tied to that business value, but already has kind of less of of governance issues. It's like, oh, there's no PII here. This is data that everybody can use already, right? It could be some open data. It could be something that there's going to be less barriers, right? Less infosec stuff you have to go to. That means that I already avoided having to go deal with a bunch of like technical security things, right? So you have one less thing to go worry about that. So that's another one. So find data that's already accessible to everybody in your organization. And then I think a third one is you want to have data that already has that well-defined semantics, that well-defined meaning. That if you look at if it happens to be a very specific table, there is no the ambiguity is gone, right? You know what the stuff means. The basic stuff is, does this table have good names, right? Has good column names? Does it have descriptions? Do I know what this is? This is a value as an integer, but that integer really is a temperature, but that temperature is a Fahrenheit or Celsius. Like, you really have all these descriptions around that. So you have eliminated the ambiguity around that. So if you find those approaches, three things: you understand very clearly the business problem you're trying to go solve. You have data that is needed to be able to solve that business problem, and that data itself is something that can be accessible by many. And third, it's data that already has a lot of clear semantics. Then you're ready to hit the ground running with that. And that should be the first thing to start off with. Because what I'm seeing right now is people just throwing shit out of the wall and see what sticks, and then there's just having fun, and then it goes very bottoms up approach, and then the top down there's a separation. There's my three things. So anyways, I'm talking too much. You go.
No, so any company examples that you can share where you've seen this kind of play out nicely?
Yeah. So one of the things, one of the companies talk about is so WPP, for example. WPP is one of the world's largest advertising media agencies. They have a one of their biggest crown jewels of data they have is something called BAV, brand asset value. You can just look it up. And what they've been doing is collecting. They've been surveying people all around the world for I don't know how many decades to understand just brands, right? You know, a particular brand. I don't know. I got Yeti, right? Yeti. So what do people believe about Yeti? They have different. They survey people. And they ask people about so many different types of they call it pillars, right? So it's like, how strong is it? How esteemed is it? And so forth. So they have this, and so this is a data set that everybody at WPP can use. 100,000 employees there at WPP can use this. And it's something that is so important because they're creatives. They want people to understand and understand competitors and so forth. So they have that data. So they have a very important data set. It's the data set that everybody can use. Now, what is the business problem opportunity here is that they already have a bunch of applications that people can go use, go through to ask questions on that data. But you can only ask the questions through those applications. So what happens if there's like a very specific type of question you want to go ask, but you can't do it through the application, or it's so complicated that it's so hard to go train people and so forth? Then they need to get help. They spend some time. They need to bring up data teams to go do this. So they waste a lot of time, and then the advertising media, the competition is so fierce. So they said they know already what are the types of questions that people are asking, but they're not able to answer today, and that's costing them the time, and they're costing them issues with their customers. So very clear business problem they had there, and they said, wait, if we can now chat with this data, this would be huge, because
it's a huge productivity.
It's not only because the potential is to hit 100,000 employees when they're right now hitting less than that. So then the other thing is, because this is such an esteemed, very important data set, they have for decades. When you talk about how strong a brand is, they have clear definitions of what strong means, and there's all these.
I mean, that's the whole ranking, right? Don't they also publish that ranking online? And every year you're like, Coca-Cola is worth $100 billion brand value.
Exactly. So they've invested in this. So they started with that, with very clear semantics, a data set that everybody could use, a very clear problem. And we've been working on this, and now they're they're expanding this to all 100,000 employees to be able to go chat with that data, because they started small with this. And they actually iterated around this stuff. And then, by the way, you can have, I think it's like 70 different types of metrics they can do. But we didn't start with the 70. We started with 5 and get that out and keep going and iterate little by little.
Like that.
So that's
shout out to WPP for making that happen. That's pretty amazing. So Juan, maybe just bringing it all together. What I'm hearing is, hey, like, AI is great. It was never built for structured data. For it to work well with structured data, you got to feed it context. Context means that you got to provide it, information about that data, the column names, the descriptions, what the fields mean, how they're used in the business, how they're related to one another. That's what an ontology is describing all those relationships, but there's varying degrees that you can go. It means we got to bring governance into our data products. We want to make sure those data products are linked to business value. And let's be really practical about this, right? Start with the business problem, start with data that is well defined already, and start with data that should be accessible to many people in the organization. It has all the scale potential, and that's what's going to help you get started. Now, the good news, I think, too, is that organizations like Data.World and Domo have actually made a lot of strides, right, on helping solve this. I know on our end, on the Domo side, we actually introduced our AI readiness. And that basically means for every one of your data sets, you start describing out exactly the things you talked about. What are the columns? What do they mean? What are the descriptions? And then when you start doing your AI chat, we found, and showing your work, we found that it increases the accuracy significantly, but then it also shows, here's why this is a SQL query that was actually generated because of the question you asked and based on the knowledge we know. And I'm sure you're doing the same at Data.World as well.
100%. And then one thing I want to add to this also, we've had this framework that my colleague Tim Gasper and I, for data products, we call the ABCs of data products, which helps us kind of put this all together. It's ABCD: accountability, boundaries, contracts and expectations, downstream consumers, and the explicit knowledge. So accountability. So when you start thinking about these data products, like accountability, right? Who's responsible for this, right? Who fixes when it breaks, right? Who gets promoted because something amazing happens? Who gets fired if something very bad happened, right? That's let's set up accountability. By the way, I think one of the big things is that as data leaders, we need to step up and be more accountable for our stuff. And I think one of my pet peeves is when people say it's so hard to show the ROI on data work that we're doing. Like the irony that we don't even have the data to show the data value. It's like it just blows my
mind. We're the people responsible for measuring stuff.
No. So B, boundaries is like
do as I say, not as I do, right? Do as I say, not as I do, right? All right. No, sorry.
All right. So B, boundaries, product management. Draw a box. Is it in the box? Is it outside the box? The boundaries what I'm going to do today, but the boundaries expand because of the roadmaps. Contracts and expectations. What is this designed for? What is the use cases? Is there what are the SLAs? What are the SLOs? Is there PII and so forth? Contracts and expectations. The downstream consumers. I am building this for whom? I want to understand who my users are. Who are the potential next users? And finally, E for explicit knowledge. This is where the semantics come in. I want to be able to have very clear definitions. I want to have documentation. I want to have examples. Tell me how this thing can be joined and combined with some other data product. A, B, C, D, E. And by the way, you don't have to go do everything. Just think about that as a framework and start building towards that.
Juan, always a pleasure. Always entertaining. It was kind of like our Sunday conversations. You did throw in a couple words that you use in the Sunday conversations. I love it. Juan and I have these amazing conversations about everything in the industry, what we think is working, what we think isn't working. Try to keep it honest and no BS. And so we've tried to do that today. Juan, thank you so much for joining me. This was so much fun.
Thanks for having me. And Mark, you're on mute.
Mark, you are on mute, my man.
That's so embarrassing. It's like I've never been on one of these before. Hey, I'm not going to let you two off that easily. So very, very quickly. This is speed. Speed is what we're doing here. Mohammed, get ready. You're first. We like Juan more right now, so we're going to let him.
Dude, I like Juan more too. There we go.
All right. It's enough.
Mohammed, top 3 things companies have to be doing in AI today. What are they? Go.
I think you got to do the basics from the start. Just do the simple things. The second is you got to be thinking about what are those opportunities that are going to really transform the way your business works. And I think the third thing, which Juan mentioned really nice, is start empowering others, right? Get the basics, have a vision, empower others.
Love it. Juan?
Know exactly what is the business problem you're solving. There's 3 things you do: make money, save money, mitigate risk. You have to be very explicit around that stuff. Second, the foundations, right? Understand how getting the basics of what data I have, what does this stuff mean, and third is don't boil the ocean. So start small, iterate, and then show quick wins, and get people excited that they're going to be asked. The problem that you want to have is I want more, but you want the business people to say I want more, and you're able to, and then you can say yes, we'll go do it.
I love that. I love that idea that Ashley just posted there. Brakes not to stop, but to drive fast safely.
Exactly.
Love that. Go check out, everybody, Juan's podcast. Really amazing stuff. I want to be invited to one of these future conversations with Muhammad and Juan, but I'm not at that same level of smartness. So instead, I will not be invited. But thank you, Juan. Thank you, Muhammad.
Mark, we get in on that. No.
No. We'll meet up and have dinner soon for sure.
Done. I am at a dinner, so I'll take that. Thanks, Muhammad. Thanks, Juan. Right. Okay, next up on the list, I am so excited. We have an amazing partner, One Magnify, RXA. I still am going to call you out on that. So Nadine and team, if you're mad at me, I'm sorry. I apologize. But Danielle Barnes and team over at One Magnify are doing some really cool things in the AI space. And one of their customers, their clients, is Ford Direct, and we've seen and heard some really amazing things from Tom Thomas in the past, and I am really excited to welcome Tom and Danielle here to this event today. So welcome, Danielle. Tom, how are you? I think you're on mute.
We're good. Thank you for asking.
Good. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Tom. Today, the Ford Direct and One Magnify team are going to take us a little bit behind the scenes on how they built an AI co-pilot that is actually running inside of a very large-scale enterprise with Ford Direct now. So with that, Danielle, Tom, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much to everybody who joined today. We're excited to talk to you today. We'll give some quick intros who we are, and then I'm excited, and all of you should be as well, because you get to come to the first podcast that is run by Tom and I. So we're pretty excited to go behind the scenes and talk to you today. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle Barnes. I'm a managing director with RXA at One Magnify, and I help head up our data and AI initiatives. So Tom, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Thomas. I run data strategy, analytics, and AI at Ford Direct. And for those of you who don't know who Ford Direct is, it is a joint venture between Ford Motor Company and all of the Ford and dealers and Lincoln retailers in the US and Canada. We are majority owned by Ford Motor Company and majority controlled by our dealers. And our shared goal is to attract, engage, convert, and retain customers as they interact digitally with the Ford and Lincoln brands at what we call Tier 1, with the regional marketing and advertising that happens at what we call Tier 2, and directly with the dealers and retailers at Tier 3. So we strive to ensure both shoppers and owners have a consistent experience throughout the channels that they interact in, whether they're a shopper or an owner, which ultimately translates into more vehicle sales, service volume, and high customer satisfaction.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. So I'm actually going to ask you some questions around Copilot and really the business and use case definition, right? How Copilot came to be. So to start off, what business problems, challenges are you trying to solve with Copilot?
Well, first, just to start off with, one of the advantages that Ford Direct has is it provides a lot of the channels as products to our entire dealer network in the US and Canada, so that we have essentially connectivity into those products that are synonymous with channels. So like websites and advertising, digital advertising programs, one-to-one marketing, communications, CRM systems that the dealers are using to interact with their customers, and the dealer management systems. So we have this really rich access to all the customer activity that happens across all those channels as the customer is going through their whole shopping and ownership lifecycle. So it's the largest single source of customer behavioral activity of any OEM and dealer network that there is. So with that, we're in this great position to action that data on behalf of our dealers and to their benefit. So the specific problem we were trying to solve with the Dealer Copilot is, if you've ever been to a dealership before, I'm sure you've noticed it's a pretty hectic and complex environment as far as a small to medium-sized business goes. There's a wide variety of data that the sales people and service technicians and management need to serve their customers. And the faster they're able to access that data more efficiently, the more efficiently and effective they can be when they're working with the customer or understanding what's happening within the dealership from an overall inventory, demand, marketing, advertising, pricing, incentives, and labor perspective. So a couple of years ago, we had surveyed the dealers to understand how many systems they log into on a daily basis. And it was really anywhere from like 9 to 15 different dashboards a day. So both Ford Direct's Dealer Advisory Board and our board of managers charged us with helping simplify the dealer business in order to reduce costs for them. So giving them access to data they need across those multiple roles to do their job from a single source has been a strategic objective of Ford Direct's really for the last year or so. So we knew that we could build a business intelligence solution that was unique because we had stitched and modeled so much of that cross-channel, cross-dealer, and cross-tier customer data together over the years to really help the dealers quickly answer a variety of questions about all those different subject areas. So ultimately, the Dealer Copilot is this desktop or mobile-enabled device that is that sort of single source that allows dealers to be on their feet, engaging directly with customers while on the lot or during a test drive or even after hours at home. So they don't have to keep going back to their desks and dragging the customer back with them into the dealership, open up another dashboard to answer a customer question. They can simply go to that device and ask the Copilot.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Tom, and all of that great history. And just to take a step back for folks who are not familiar with Copilot or what we call Dealer Copilot, it's really solving what Tom described, and that's a way to really easily interact with the Ford Direct customer journey platform in a way that's as simple as interacting with ChatGPT. And so with that, I think that kind of leads us to the next question and why it was crafted the way it was. So Tom, who are the primary users and how will this change the way they do business?
Well, so for the version 1, the Copilot are really targeting users that are in the area of sales, demand management, inventory management. So they'll initially, and these are why we started there is because those are the areas where the data is most siloed and fragmented, right? So when you think about the customer journey in the automotive space, you have to realize that as they're shopping across those different channels within the dealer's unique ecosystem. So if they're responding to the advertising, the marketing, the websites, they're coming in for service, they're interacting, in store with the dealership, all those signals are being captured within the dealer's own ecosystem. They're also interacting with the brand marketing and advertising. They're going and visiting Ford.com and Lincoln.com. And they're also responding to some of that more regional tier 2 advertising marketing. And so, and obviously, customers don't shop at just one dealership. Most of the time they're going across dealerships and changing their minds and doing different things. So since Ford Direct and their sort of data platform sits in the middle of and is connected to that, cross-tier, cross-channel, cross-dealer data network that the customer kind of weaves their way through during their shopping and ownership cycle, we're able to kind of break down those silos initially for the dealers. So those are the kind of areas that we're focusing on first.
Awesome. And what value do you expect to get from Copilot?
Well, so so Copilot is what's called compound generative AI system, right? It can use data from multiple dealer systems at once to answer like a single compound prompt, right? So a compound prompt just meaning a prompt that has that might require several different queries to structured data. And then that provides more comprehensive insights, and it also allows it to leverage our predictive AI and modeled data as well in what we call customer profiles. So our value objectives are really in stages. For the next year, Copilot's primarily going to be like an answer engine. So very familiar, if you're familiar with Perplexity, it's going to do kind of what Perplexity does. And we're providing essentially convenient access to information that the dealer can get from one of their existing dashboards today. So instead of logging in, navigating to that particular view or report, filtering, they simply just ask the Copilot question with their voice on the mobile or desktop device. So it makes it really simple. And they're also going to be getting access to new data or data that they don't have access to today, or they can't get very easily. So for example, dealers don't have access to their own customers' behavior on Ford.com when they visit Ford.com or Lincoln.com. So understanding the customer activity that happens at Ford.com related to their specific inventory is not available to them very easily. And more general or non-specific dealer customer info will also be available. So like, is the customer in general still on market? What's their propensity to purchase or conduct service over the next 90 days? What's their latest vehicle of interest, right? So right now it's this sort of pull paradigm where we use the Copilot, or they'll use it to retrieve information that we've already thought about. But once we're in 2026, we're going to quickly move it to more of a push mode so that it can more autonomously detect different things happening in different systems that trigger alerts to the dealership. So if the Copilot, let's say, detects the dealership's Ford Explorer window configurators are running low, it'll alert them and ask them if they want to order more. Or if it's instead of the dealer having to log into a system, place the order, the Copilot can just do it with like a single tap. A more unsupervised example would be making recommendations as an automatic shift of media spend from, let's say, a social media channel to search once inventory gets too high. And that amount of spend could be shifted based upon a secondary media mix model that we have running in the background. All right, so these are all areas where we kind of push information to the dealership. And then the latter stage of that would be where the Copilot's starting to actually do some of the tasks in the background instead of a human having to be in the loop, right? So it could be scheduling appointments, checking credit for a customer, or initiating a vehicle transfer, since we have access to all the inventory data across all the dealer lots. And we also control the system where dealers can trade vehicles from dealership to dealership where there's different need from customers in different locations.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear. I mean, I think that there's a lot of value to be expected from a product like this.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and we're getting a lot of great results and a lot of great ideas from our dealers as we're piloting and testing it right now.
Awesome. Yeah, so I can give a little bit of background too, really on the nuts and bolts and how we approached that Copilot build. So I think you kind of heard the value and really how this is integrated nicely with quite a few different models, AI type models and that sort of thing. But our approach has really changed significantly over the years that we've been building Copilot, which is really interesting. So at first, we treated Copilot, so Dealer Copilot, as we call it, to not confuse it with all of the other Copilots as well, a proof of concept, just to see if we could accomplish some basic goals, because at the time, the technology was really new. And since then, over the past few years, it's actually morphed into something that's much bigger, really a proper software development project, because over 3,000 dealers are going to have access to Dealer Copilot. The only difference is that we're treating generative AI as a standard technology, almost just like we would treat SQL as the standard for data retrieval. So now it's integrated into the way that we're doing work daily. Cool. So Tom, I'm going to ask another question for you. So what key data is needed to ensure Copilot success? And can you share how Ford Direct tackled this challenge?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, since we're focused on customer information, customer profiles for the users, the overall demand that's happening at the dealership, sales information, inventory, getting a rich and clean source of customer sales inventory and demand data that we already kind of had in place that were serving other either product enhancement needs. So we have an advertising program. We have a large platform, which is we call our customer journey platform. It captures all the different signals across all the channels over a multi-year period for every individual customer across all those dealers across tier. We can serve audiences from that and straight into our advertising program that are unique and specific to each of those dealers. So we had been using a lot of these data sources for product enhancements, as well as a lot of sophisticated business intelligence for years. So those data sources were already well documented, labeled, cleansed, and that allowed us to really sort of leapfrog into figuring out ways to use AI tools to really action that data in ways we never could before and at much faster development times. So consolidating all those signals into that one journey platform was a huge piece of that, which allowed us to sort of quickly develop the RAG or retrieval augmented generative layer for the team and the LLM agents and the Copilot architecture. So we could build, so we could essentially respond with accurate responses much quicker than it would be if we didn't have a lot of that taxonomy figured out. So I think what allowed us to really get through the challenge is, the time series sort of layout of the customer activity. We also have our customer journey platform in a very robust analytics platform and layer that is one of the top tier technology providers in the world, and they are continuing to innovate, and we're a part of that innovation process with them. But we also built a good metadata layer at both the signal within those customer journeys as well as the overall journey layer. So for each signal, in our CJP, there's a well understood taxonomy that each of those signals fall into. So there's roughly 8 to 10 different attributes for every signal that's in, let's say, customer journey record. So not just the timestamp, but what the source of the signal was. So say if it's an email event, was that an inbound or an outbound email? Did the customer click on it? Was it coming from the one-to-one messaging platform? Was it coming from the CRM? Was it coming from Ford, for example? So all those different attributes are on every single signal is there and available for prompting, let's say. And then we have this metadata layer that's on top of each of the journeys, which is like basically an overall profile. So essentially, what is the customer's overall in market situation? What's the best way they like to be communicated to? What's their propensity for sale and for service? What's their lifetime value? What's their most likely vehicle of interest? What's their latest vehicle of interest? How many signals had they given off? When was the last time they interacted? So there's a whole bunch of rich profile data that sits on top of those raw records. So having that there available and documented, having to teach the LLMs how to go about the right frameworks for doing was allowed us to be very careful.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
Looks like the dog has some questions too.
Sorry, what was that?
It sounds like the dog has some questions.
Yeah. Normally the noise cancels out, but I guess not. So hopefully folks can hear me okay. And I think that's really, Tom sharing about that journey, that data journey, right? All of that work that's required to move into something like Copilot. is great. And that's something where One Magnify can help as well, right? So we do get the question commonly, like, if my data's not ready, what do I do? Does that mean I can't do something like Copilot? And my answer to that would be not at all. So if you're collecting data in these various systems, we can actually help consolidate that. We can help build out that data platform to move into being able to do something that is similar to Copilot. For any AI initiatives, there's going to be foundational work that's required, but we can help get you there, and it's something that we offer from a strategic planning and road mapping perspective as well to help move your business into an AI-enabled approach. And so with that, Tom, how is working with Copilot shaped or influenced Ford Direct's approach to AI?
Well, it has essentially, allowed us to jumpstart other AI ideas and initiatives, inside the business. So since the Copilot itself is a compound AI system that utilizes machine learning, generative AI, retrieval augmented generation, and agents, every other idea so far since it has been somewhat more simple. So leveraging pieces of the actual Copilot architecture, as well as the knowledge and experience of how to implement the different components of a new architecture to do something different, has allowed us to be a lot more confident and kind of bold in continuing to move down this path quickly. So for example, we could take a portion of the Copilot architecture, repurpose it, and we're doing like summarization projects where structured data is going into or is being pulled from something that's used to drive an overall dealer assessment for a field team, right? And so those are automatically built in Domo with an automated print function, but they run off a Domo data set. And we simply feed that into another agent-like architecture that allows a generative AI to essentially summarize everything that's happening in that presentation deck so that it's a quick go-to slide in those presentations that our field teams give to the dealers in terms of how well the dealers, marketing and digital ecosystem is performing. So that's what we started to get really good at is as kind of the other parts of building out these solutions is becoming a little bit more commoditized. So like, how do you connect with an endpoint? We've moved sort of away from fine tuning LLMs, which was a thing like a year ago that people were trying to do, which was really data science heavy, and those and expensive, and into more of the prompt engineering side, the RAG engineering side, and really teaching the LLMs what they need to do and how to respond. So we're using those frameworks and those strategies and those thought processes that really made us to be a lot more capable in pursuing other initiatives.
Awesome. And so beyond being a new tool for dealers, what other benefits has Copilot brought to Ford Direct? And I see, Mark, welcome back. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I said, Tom, go ahead and take that one, and then I got a quick question for you as well.
Yes, just a moment here. So the other, so what it's helped us do is also help understand our own corporate strategy better as well. So I'm responsible for the data and AI strategy of the company, and what we did is, because we are so ahead in the data space and we were sort of like early adopters in understanding and pursuing AI solutions, we really sort of built a solution first and without any kind of AI strategy in place yet. We did have a lot of thought go into the individual use of AI in the company, and kind of followed along with what Ford was doing at the OEM level for their employees, right? So that sort of the democratization of AI, thanks to the hyperscalers, we had to react fast to figure out, like, well, are we allowed to use ChatGPT at work, or should we be using a more secure version that we have available to us from a very sophisticated platform at Ford called Mach 1 LLM, for example. So putting those policies and guidelines together by a multitude of teams in Ford Direct, we did right away. But in terms of like an enterprise strategy around developing AI solutions for the company, you really kind of look at it like you would do any other broad strategic initiatives, right? So trying to understand, what value can each of the ideas drive, right? So we're using somewhat of a Gartner approach in terms of measuring the different types of value that could come from different types of AI ideas. So we're using like return on investment, return on the enterprise, which is building an internal AI solution that helps a whole area or department operate more efficiently. There's also a return on the future, which is more along the lines of investing and doing R&D to build out capabilities that allow for AI. So whether it's building out having a tool or a data management platform that is highly integrated, for AI solutions would be something like that, as well as some of the things we're doing in the Copilot architecture are also, you could consider more R&D-ish. And then there's also the return on person, right, which is more that individual use, helping individuals write those emails and analyze documents. And so what it's done is by building out a very complex solution up front, we can kind of decompose that backwards and categorize different areas of ideas and figure out where those fall into the strategy piece. So that is, that's where else it's really helping us.
Tom and Danielle, thank you. Amazing stuff. Tom, I do want to ask you one last question, if that's okay. Obviously, what you're doing with all of these dealerships from an AI perspective, and Ford Direct is no small organization. Well, how did you get started? How did you not let so much data and so much talk about AI almost paralyze you? How did you just jump in and start building things that would make a difference?
So I think we're a little bit lucky in that I started to sort of research and understand this as far back as like late 2022. Benefit of having a son who's pursuing a computer science degree at Michigan at the same time, and they were, the students were using, I think, 3.0, and he showed me, over holidays how he was using ChatGPT. It was like writing Python code right there in front of me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, what is going on here? So then I kind of just dove into the science behind, the transformer models, diffusion models, and things like that, and trying to figure out like, okay, how could this be used to do some of the more advanced things we wanted to do with our customer journey platform. And so we started very early, and it was almost ahead of the hype wave and the noise that started to come maybe within 3 to 6 months later, right? So we, in one way, it's great because we didn't have, we also experimented with a unstructured data set of social media conversation around our Ford and Lincoln dealers that we had curated for several years, and we're able to vectorize that very quickly and put an LLM in the middle of that and create up a small pipeline architecture using the Domo as the interface to sort of prove out what this could be. So we had our dealer advisory board asking questions about what people are saying about their service department at their specific dealership. So the ability to sort of go from showing the dealers had been somewhat familiar with ChatGPT, but they realized, you couldn't ask it anything personal or specific about their business. So they could just, ask it general trends about what people might be saying about F-150s, right? Or something like that. But if they asked something specific about their dealership, it wouldn't answer it. So we built a version of that, of like a ChatGPT to them that would answer questions about what people are talking about in terms of their business. And so that got them very interested and say, what if we could do something that also answered questions about specific performance of your dealership, or what's actually happening within your dealership from a transactional standpoint, customer activity standpoint, inventory mix standpoint, and overall sort of satisfaction. And so that's kind of how we got started. It was sort of like move fast, experimented quickly, showed something, put something in their hands. And this was in the summer of 23. We had this sort of enterprise-ish data prototype of a chatbot, and then we used, without any kind of real RAG design, an assortment of open source LLMs to try and retrieve data from like the real structured data sources, and it would come back accurate roughly 60 to 70% of the time. But just to see it come back accurately at that rate really piqued the interest of what would be our customers in the long run. So they said, keep going, and we've been developing a much more robust system that's at like 98% accuracy on the structured data at this point, and is getting we're planning to launch it as a product in 26.
That's awesome. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being an amazing customer. Thank you to Danielle, just incredible partners from an RXA and One Magnify perspective. We're super impressed and excited about all that you're doing. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you,
everyone.
Okay, everyone, we are going to keep moving here. We still have a whole bunch of really stellar pieces of content to come out, including some really great keynotes. So next up, my good friend who happens to love tacos, not as much as I do, but quite a bit. And he may play a little AC/DC for us during this next presentation. I'm not sure. Bruce Harris is the Director of Finance Applications at Torchy's Tacos. If you haven't been there, if you haven't eaten there, you are missing out. He's going to talk today a little bit about an AI agent that they have built and that they're leveraging today that's helping to transform business processes with automation, with intelligent systems. He'll walk through how they're cutting down complexity, increasing visibility, and really just laying the groundwork for faster, smarter decision-making. So with that, Bruce, thanks for being an amazing Domo customer. Thanks for coming and showing us what you're doing with AI agents already, and we're excited to hear what you have to share.
Definitely changing the world one queso at a time. So, all right. So, Bruce Harris, Director of Financial Applications at Torchy's Tacos. So we'll walk through kind of what we did for the finance side. I know the finance side, there are a lot of manual processes, especially here. We'll get massive files from vendors because we're buying so many different things that we'll literally have every queso or guacamole that we bought, every tortilla. So massive amounts of data, very small accounting team, tight close cycles. So show you what we've done. I will say in the last, a couple months, we've almost automated one full-time, one FTE. We've saved that many hours using automation on the finance side in Domo. So I've got a great accounting team to work with. Shout out to Jackie. It's, she's had some great ideas. She goes, these are the pain points, and partnering and seeing what Domo can do. So here's my background for Domo Paloozas, case study. I have no formal training in analytics or data or AI. I actually did not start even using the Domo workflow until a couple months ago. So given all that, so that's a testament to how well these tools are designed, and acquired Domo at 3 companies and implemented it 4. So it's my American Express card. I won't leave home without it. So fantastic application, and just the power, it just continues to grow. So started with just literally a Vespa scooter and Mike hustling around Austin, Texas, delivering queso and tacos, trying to build up that audience. And now we're up to 128 stores in the 17 states. So really, really cool success story here at Torchy's. So what we set out to do was getting access to the data for the end users. We didn't want to have to use expensive consultants. Development times were long. Trying to develop some of these processes in other applications that weren't AI enabled, where the data wasn't native to these systems, 5 months. So I'll show you, we've taken months into literal days. They weren't natively connected to other systems. We had annoyed vendors saying, hey, when am I going to get paid? And said having that native AI in the tools just wasn't there. So that was kind of our context of some of the pain points and what we're hoping to solve using this. So said it was a very detailed. This process is basically when a charity wants to hold a charity night at Torchy's Tacos, they can come in and 10 to 15% of the proceeds will be donated to that charity based on sales. So kind of cool. We're trying to help the the environment out there. Some of these charities raise some money, so it's kind of cool and eat some delicious tacos. So back and forth errors. It was not an automated process. It was the end users in the stores didn't have access to the data or the statuses. Accounting, people would ping accounting, say, where's my stuff? And they would have to look things up. So very, very, very manual process of these events where we needed, obviously, the vendor created, which was the charity. And then we need to get the vendor invoice created, and then we need to get them paid. Those long delivery cycles that some of these tools have of taking months, stores lack of insight to the data. So they always call up accounting and take their time, and then they would have to look that data not being native to those other tools, and just empowering the end users. So we could put the power in their hands. So now you can control the process. You have visibility in the process, and that makes happier users. So what we set out to do is use the AI agents in Domo workflow to solve that Spirit Night process. So what that involved is we need that vendor created. That vendor information is on what's called a W-9 form you may be familiar with. We needed that obviously entered to our NetSuite accounting system. And then we needed that invoice created and then that payment created so we get that vendor paid, and then obviously let everybody know what we're doing. So, having started with this process, long development times, I was at Domopalooza and saw Dan Hendrickson give a presentation on the new AI agent workflows. There was a financial aspect to it. He goes, I'm gonna put myself in a shot clock, which was wonderful. He gave himself a whopping 5 minutes. He goes, what I want to do is upload an invoice, and the invoice has data on it. And if the invoice is over $500, I want to send it for approval. Otherwise, auto approve it. So simple use case, but he only gave himself 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, he was able to create that AI agent workflow, get that image uploaded of that invoice, and then send it on the approval or non-approval process. So having seen that, I'm like, wait a minute, I got a problem I think we can solve. So I grabbed him right after that session, and then I probably annoyed him more than I should have, but wonderful things have turned out. So that's that vision. It's the workflow, it's the agents, Domo Dan, and then the apps, that delivery method that we're delivering to the end users. Those apps give a little better end user experience for these processes where they're just uploading. It's not, we don't need big pages or dashboards for this information. So starts with that workflow. We know the AI agents are new and those were just released. So we also use tasks and email alerts for further automation, because once again, we want everything to be proactive. We don't want anybody to have to search or find out, or what's the status, or is there an invoice waiting? Is there a vendor file waiting for me? So that proactive notification. And then we need that formatting, because we know we work with NetSuite, and NetSuite's great, but NetSuite, like accounting systems, they always require very specific formats, and the data has to be formatted perfectly. Debits have to equal credits. All the data has to be in the right format. And that's one of the biggest pains of getting data into NetSuite, is that formatting it exactly like we need it, if we're sending it via API or if we're uploading via CSV. So Domo, once again, is fantastic on doing that formatting, using the AI to do some very innovative formatting. I'll show you. And using the other powers of Domo and the ETLs to format that data correctly. So great thing about the AI agents is more that natural language instead of coding, as we've seen, one of the most powerful aspects of AI. We read the W-9 image and it checks for the signature too. So, because we need a signed W-9, so the W-9 isn't signed, we have to kick it back and get a signed one. Once again, that was bringing friction into the process, because a lot of times that wasn't noticed until it was sent to accounting, and accounting opened the file, the W-9, and then saw it wasn't signed, and then the process had to start all over again. We're doing checking that NetSuite data, since that NetSuite data is loaded into Domo every day. So now we can check against existing NetSuite data if they're duplicates. And if they're duplicates, then it lets the end user know, like, hey, do you want to continue or not? And if they're already in there, then the user says, great. So now we don't even have to bother accounting. We know that vendor's already in there. We're doing very innovative things like creating vendor codes, shortening the name, basically using an alias for the vendor, using some cool AI rules. We had a little trickier part too, because the consultants who designed this vendor process, they're not using state codes like TX or Texas. They're using the IDs that are in NetSuite, like Texas is 44. So then we have to derive all that. But as I found out in part of this process too, there are many, many ways people can fill forms out. Texas can be TX, Texas can be TEXAS. So it can obviously have multiple formats. So in the AI, I was able to take, put the AI instructions in plain English. Like, if you see a 2-digit state code, then go look in Domo for this NetSuite data and match on the state abbreviation, and then return the ID, which would be 44. So if they put TX, it's going to know to, hey, look at the short code, find the TX and return the ID. But then it also knows, like, hey, if that state code's more than 2 letters, if they write out Texas, then the AI is smart enough to go, okay, well, that's the full name of the state. Don't look at the short code. Look at the full state name, find Texas, and return that ID. So cool things like that. That was kind of a little curveball it threw me that I wasn't thinking about, but I'm like, I bet I can solve this in AI, and we wonderfully could. And then finally calculating some payments, because it's a standard 15% donation, but then they can add more to kind of round that up. So with AI, since it is very forefront, very cutting edge, changing constantly, so there is a bit of art to the AI commands. So you'll experiment a little with some of the commands, like that first one you'll see. I first put, I want you to restore the value. That's the terminology I use, and that wasn't working great. And then I changed the word store to return, and returned it liked that terminology a little better. Telling it to use which AI agents exactly for different processes really helps it too. And then things that, there can be different scenarios. So they can add an additional donation or not. But it was sometimes if they didn't add an additional donation, it wasn't getting that final donation exactly correct. So then I realized, like, oh, well, let me guide the AI a little more and say, and explicitly state, by the way, if that additional donation is 0, then just use the initial donation value. And then that helped train the AI, and the AI got a little smarter. And then it was able to handle that $0 scenario where they're adding 0 to the donation a little better. Because before I had that, it struggled a little with getting those when I'm not adding an additional donation amount. So once again, a little experimentation and playing with it, but that's kind of that's part of the fun. So for those AI agents, exactly, using those detailed descriptions on your tasks. When you go to the Domo different AI agent tasks too, in that description field, you can actually put the AI instructions there. You can also put them in the configuration part. So there are a couple places you can put it. I did find in some places it did help to put the description in that AI agent part in additional to the instructions. And then the testing, running through those tests, it was fantastic, where you can run with a file. So I could test a file upload based on a file ID. And if it was not a file, when they request the bill, it's not a file input, it is text input. I could send those different parts of text separated by pipes into the testing. I'll show you in just a second, then you can see how that works. So for the test runs, so you can see how it's going to behave. And I will say, one of the pleasant things about the AI agent is that it's very polite and very enthusiastic. So you'll see when it replies, it'll be like, great, well, first let's try this. And is there anything else you need me to do? So I have to admit too that it's a very polite and enthusiastic AI agent, which helps the process even further. So talked about Dan too. Seeing Dan's demonstration at Domopalooza, just that started the thinking process. He was able to give great ideas on optimizations and best practices. So, you know, Domo reaching out to help is just once again fantastic. And finally, the apps. So that apps is, we found out a little better delivery method because it is light touch. The apps on the phone too, so they can request all this information on their phone. Kind of gives it a little better end user experience than the standard dashboards for that input file for the inputting the check request, and then ultimately it's going to create that download file for NetSuite. So that's our final output. Takes the input, takes either the W-9 or the request for the invoice, formats that out. All the AI does, all the formatting, it generates vendor codes. It takes the first 3 letters of the vendor first name, the second 3 letters, the first 3 letters of the vendor second name, puts that together to generate a vendor code. But there's also things like if there's a D or an and in the vendor name, I don't want part of that vendor code. So my AI instructions literally say, take the first 3 letters of the vendor name. If it's the word the, then go to the second letter, the second word. And if you see the word and, also skip that and go to the next word in the vendor name to use the first 3 letters. So once again, the AI can read all that, do all that, skip the word, the D's and ands, so the D's and ands don't end up part of that 6-digit vendor code. So it basically takes 3 letters from the first name that aren't the and 3 letters from the second name that aren't the and, concatenates that together, generates that unique vendor code, then we upload to NetSuite too. So another cool use of that AI. So we get that, it's uploaded into NetSuite. That's a custom form, that vendor, it's a custom kind of staging area. The invoice is the standard invoice. So right now we're going to start with uploading the invoice via CSV, but we know we can also move later to that Domo direct connection and upload that via API directly to NetSuite using the connectors. So future is very, very bright. People are starting to see this automation. They're reaching out more like, hey, I got these processes. You know, what can we do about this? So automate more financial processes, and then use more of the AI for that dynamic analysis of data by stores to get a little more in depth. So some of the key takeaways for our process. So find those manual time-intensive processes. AI is definitely intimidating, especially the more structured world that users live in. And when accounting could be a very structured world, it can intimidate a lot of people. Like, hey, is AI going to take my job? Like, absolutely it is not. It's going to automate those manual processes that you don't like doing, that you're spending hours, that actually we probably shouldn't be doing anyway, but it's because our vendors are sending these massive files that we have to figure out and process ourselves. So it's going to automate all that stuff you don't like doing. You're going to get AI experience, and then now you're going to move up the value add chain to get more value added processes. So it's fantastic. So, and then find those users. Got a couple of users here at Torchies that are open to that AI and automation. Just keep thinking of ideas, and that is that great engine to keep us thinking. And then you establish that foothold, and as people see it, they're like, wow, I get it. Okay, so this is automating those things I really don't like doing. And I'm, it's not, I'm not in danger. And then they just start thinking. So once you get to people start thinking, then you really start. Which we know so they don't really like, hey, just enter data and do something that's going to end up like this. Like, no, it needs to be structured. It needs to be auditable. There need to be checkpoints in the process that people validate stuff is correct. And then only once it's correct do we upload it, because we don't want junk in our accounting system. And this process, I'll show you, it has checkpoints. Create it, and it gives you the chance to change the tax ID number if it wasn't read correctly. Same thing for the bill request. It gives a checkpoint that they have to validate that the extra amount and the final payment amount are correct. So those checkpoints, once again, are very, very important in the financial world.
Bruce,
from the AI perspective said our time to value has gone from months to days using natural language commands, and finding that balance between ETLs and AIs. And allows the AI, so we have the AI to do checking, to do validation, to get values. Like I said, when I had to get that state ID. So very, very important. And then one trick too is creating kind of combination fields for some of the filtering in those demo forms. It helps to kind of narrow down. So that was kind of that helped really, really well. And I'll show you. I've got one more minute. I'll show you real quickly what we're talking about. From you can see it actually really happening. So let's see here.
Bruce, are you sharing? Are you wanting to share your screen there?
Yes, I think right here. Okay, so there's screen. So, all right, is that screen showing? Hopefully.
Hold on,
So here it is. So it's that great one-stop shop now. People had no visibility. You can see all these Spirit Night events. They can see the Spirit Night event, if a bill was created, if a bill was paid. Here's the W-9. Simply, they just click, they upload the file, enter some extra information. And this bill request, once again, I'll show you this process. It was manual. They had to fill out forms, send emails, stuff like this. And I will show you. And this is that combination field. Once again, it's date and store, which creates that unique value. So that helps my fields after this narrow down. So once again, the development philosophy, narrow path with high walls where users can't get lost and minimize the clicks. So this helps them. So now literally all they have to do is choose the store and the date right there. The vendor said all that vendor information is already in Domo. So select the vendor, and you see now the rest automatically autofills, the vendor address, the sales amount, the kiosk sales. So now they don't have to find or select those. They just have to know their store and the date. They can get that from the port at bottom. And there it is. There's that donation that's calculated. I want to add an additional donation of $12. And then right there in about 15 seconds, I was just able to replicate a process that before was taking hours to do. So now I got a bill request. And once again, I'll show you that checkpoint. Here's that checkpoint. So now whoever requested the bill, now from a financial perspective, we need one more validation step. So here they get this validation step. It's a review of everything they entered. They can once again correct the amount that they entered if they misentered it. So they have one last chance. They have one last validation step. They'll validate that, hit submit, and then it goes to accounting. And you can see then accounting will get an email that once it's ready, and they'll say, here's the vendor email, but they get a similar one for the bill. It says, oh, by the way, accounting, now you don't have to go look. You now have a bill or a W-9 that's ready for upload. We included the attachment too, because that was another pain point on the W-9. And everything's automated. It's proactive, works very well. And this process automated said that it saved hours. So it's now just down to a couple minutes where those users literally can't get lost. And there's a quick check into that testing. You can see once again, you just kind of put the input of what will be input, and then that AI, you get that wonderful AI output. So that was very enthusiastic and polite, and it kind of walks you through, and you can see exactly what happens. And I can validate that. Said, yep, I can look at that last output, and that's exactly what should have happened. That's what's loaded into that data set, and that's what's uploaded into NetSuite. So I can validate that all process is correct. So there is a quick overview of kind of what we've done. Said, no experience, and said I didn't start using Domo workflows or AI till just very recently. So, and that's what we're able to accomplish. So really amazing stuff.
Bruce, kudos to you. I mean, I love the story of we launched Agent Catalyst at Domopalooza. Bruce heard about that, heard Domo Dan give a session, and essentially went and said, hey, I want to try that. He says he was a little bit annoying. I don't think he really was, knowing Bruce's ideas, but he just went and figured it out. Has now built an agent that is saving hours and hours and hours and hours of time. That idea of cutting down the complexity, increasing the visibility, and really laying the groundwork for faster and smarter decision-making, I think is exactly what you nailed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so that development time, literally from months to just really about 3 or 4 days.
It's so amazing. Bruce, thank you, my friend, for being such a great customer and for leading out and doing such great things in the agentic AI space. We're excited to keep watching and learning and hopefully helping you do what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Bruce. Have a good one. Thanks for joining.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, next up, everyone, before we jump into another really excellent session, just FYI, we just launched more on-demand sessions, and they are some more good ones. This block is all about real-world execution with agentic AI. So we've got from our Domo team, Andrea Henderson and Lima Lalamode, who are going to be talking and explaining how agentic AI is helping teams work less and do more, specifically in product management. So go check that one out. We've got the one and only Captain Bill Kirk, the CEO of Weather Trends International, who introduces a really interesting idea of using predictive business weather analytics powered by agentic AI. So go check that one out. Nathan Enderle, who's our head of AI sales, talks about and explores this idea of how do you design AI that connects with humans and not just dashboards. Lee James, shout out to Lee. He just had a book on AI that just barely came out. Go check it out. He's a director at Domo over in our EMEA region. He talks about the idea of the power of strong feedback loops between people and AI and why it's essential for long-term success leveraging AI today. And last, but of course not least, Ankit Putia from our great customer Concentrix is walking through the journey from dashboards to decisions and what it takes to scale agentic AI across the enterprise. So go check those out. You can see them at ai-summit.com. Start exploring and digging in now. But before you do that, I'm really excited to invite a new friend who we haven't actually met in person yet, but that will have to happen very soon. He is a fan of a school up north, which I do not associate with, but we can still be friends. Jonathan is doing some pretty incredible stuff with Momentum.io, is all about heading up go-to-market and growth there, and is a pretty stellar follow from an AI perspective on LinkedIn. So go check him out. Jonathan's going to talk to us all today about, he's going to provide a framework for us on connecting AI to actual business impact. Jonathan, even though you still root for the red, I still love you like a brother. I'm excited to have you here and to learn from you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, Mark, good to see you. I'm a fan of Domo, and I actually kind of do like the boys in blue, so it's okay. It's all right.
We'll take that. Okay, take it away, my friend.
Cool. Well, so excited to be here. I just want to say a huge thank you to the Domo team. I have used Domo many times in the past. I'm big fans of the team and the tech. And just want to hopefully I'm going to try and time myself 15, 17 minutes-ish or so to go through how do we get ROI for AI? And we're going to hopefully burn through this. And if we don't, I'll make sure I get as many questions as we can. So real quick about me, my name is Jonathan Carford. Some people call me Coach. Quick story. There's a lot of Johns in a company once. And so my head of marketing at the time gave me a nickname of Coach because I coached the team. And my last name, like the real Coach K, is hard to say. So he just gave me Coach, and it kind of stuck ever since then for the last 4 or 5 years. Currently, I'm the head of growth, GTM growth at Momentum.io. I'm also the founder of GTM AI Academy. So Momentum is a revenue orchestration platform where we either provide data for your agents, or you can use our own AI agents to help execute customer-facing teams and communicate across your entire organization what's happening inside of those conversations. And we have integrations into different technologies that most people use, which makes it pretty awesome. And the Academy is something I've done for the last 4 years. I've taught thousands of people in mostly go-to-market organizations of how to use AI, how to strategize, how to actually apply it in their own lives. And then I advise for several different companies. These are a few of them, helping with either prompting or that kind of stuff. And lastly, I teach a couple of classes at the professional level for Bryant University for AI in sales and AI 101. So literally, I live, breathe, talk, sleep, eat AI all day long. I cannot say I'm an expert, but I am definitely a nerd. So please note, I as a precursor, that I'm a self-professed AI nerd and just love this stuff so much. So we're going to get into it. All right. So I want to talk about when we look at different research papers from Gartner to Forrester to other places, we keep seeing this common thread around how and why AI initiatives fail, which is 70 to 85% fail to deliver value. So This is actually the presentation I'm going to show you was built off of a guide that I'm happy to send afterwards. It's an in-depth one. I'm going to show you the shorter version so we can get through this in the time we have. But there's a couple of things that I see as patterns when people come to me and they say, we want to get value out of AI. How do we do that? And usually they're not necessarily technical reasons. They're more organizational problems or challenges. One of which is I have people who come to me all the time and they say, what AI tech should I get? What should I buy? And from my own personal opinion, that is the last question you should be asking, not the first one, to help identify what and how you should be using AI inside of your company. Next is you got to have a really good change management plan. So there are some AI technologies that you can do in the background that work really, really well. And there's others that will require some sort of change with your team. And a lot of people don't have good change management or enablement plans in place. I'm historically an enablement junkie. So I came from the RevOps enablement world. And before that, I was in sales for 10 years. So I'm kind of a nerd on this topic. And then lastly is a lot of teams don't have an idea on governance, integration, a clean data plan. They have siloed data in different tools. Like they don't really have a plan of making sure that the AI truly has the power it needs to by connecting the dots between the different silos of data. So in this whole process, I usually find that people have two different approaches, and there's goods and bads or strengths or weaknesses of each one. So the goal is to try and create some sort of hybrid model, but let's go through both of them really quick. So this one is the bottoms up. You'll hear this a lot where like the CEO of Shopify came out and said, hey, everyone, we're not going to hire anybody else until you can show me why AI can't do it or that kind of thing. And so some teams are doing things where they give someone access to ChatGPT or Gemini or different AI tools, which I think is very smart. The challenge with this is it's hard to scale that. Anytime anyone uses a ChatGPT or a tool like that, which is, by the way, I love those tools. The challenge it creates from an organizational standpoint is that it becomes siloed conversations inside of each ChatGPT chat. So unless you have some sort of governance layer like a Liminal or Nebula or one of those technologies that helps you see what's going on in those conversations, it's all siloed. And it creates a bigger centralized strategy problem from the bottoms up. So I feel like there's a good hybrid of making sure you do give your teams the tech they can to use ChatGPT when they need to. The other challenge with that is I'm finding as a whole, most people are not prompt engineer experts. So, and nor do they have time to become that. I'm a nerd, so I love prompting, but not everyone has the time to do that kind of stuff. So when you put in siloed conversations and the lack of ability to have good prompt engineering, it creates some problems from the bottoms up. So the other way is top down, where I'm going to go over, hopefully as much as I can, the 7 steps to cover. It does take a little bit more time, and that's usually why people rush through this, is because it takes time to do this correctly. But when you do it correctly, you have massive impacts on the long term. It's kind of like a slingshot. We have to pull yourself back and then let yourself go. Going from the top down and doing the 7 steps is literally like a slingshot where you feel like you might be going slower or backwards even at times. Once you release it, though, your team just accelerates in velocity pretty quickly. So there are 7 steps. And again, I'm going to try to get through all of these. So they go through these 7 scenarios. One is defining a business target. That's where you should begin. I always tell people that I don't think you should have an AI strategy. I think you should have a business strategy that leverages AI. It's a little bit different thought process behind it. So you have your business target. You want to map your current process and pain points. You want to assess your data readiness. You want to go into your capabilities of what AI can do based on your specific needs. As you see before, the question I said that people shouldn't ask is what AI tech I should get. That question should be asked at step number 4, not step number 1. Then step 5 is evaluate organizational readiness. That's kind of like the people and what is required for the human side. And then 6 is implement in phases. And then 7 is obviously measure and impact, making sure that things are doing what you're hoping they would do in the first place. So if we can jump in real quick. So let's talk about defining the business target. Now, what in the world is it? How do we do that? So very simply is setting some sort of target that is organizational wide, that hopefully will be one of these 4 things: tied to business value, quantifiable, time bound, or impactful. I always break it down to the 4 main metrics of business, which comes down to increasing revenue, decreasing costs, reducing the risk, or improving customer satisfaction. So if you have this kind of thing, you want to think about, okay, let's just say we want to go from revenue from 25 to 35 million this year, or we want to sell a specific product more, or whatever the bigger, longer term goal that is actually time bound and measurable and big enough to justify some sort of AI investment. Those are the things you want to narrow down to. I usually suggest to people to do this and pick one of these. I know everyone will probably say, let's pick all of them, but at least at first to pick one major impact you want to influence and go from there. After that, there's what I call an OR matrix, which is all about optimize, amplify, and reinvent. So most people, when they go into these three levels, you'll see that as you start to get ROI from AI, the first level is optimization, which I'll go into in a second, which kind of goes into your time savings and productivity, efficiency gains, that kind of thing. So a lot of AI use cases right now all about saving time. In fact, the one we just saw was saving hours and hours of time, which is insanely powerful to be able to save that time. And that is this level. So like some examples of this is like you look at different go-to-market teams with sales or CS or RevOps, et cetera. This is the kind of thing that AI can do, of like auto logging the call entries into CRM. That's what Momentum does. That's one of the things I should say it does. Meeting follow-up, again, another thing Momentum does. This kind of benefit saves hours and is insanely powerful because it takes the little stuff out of the way so that teams can actually execute ahead of time. But again, this is one of three different ways we could do this. Optimization is the first level of ROI. Second level is amplify. So think about what are the things that AI can do to link directly to revenue growth or to significant cost reductions, not just time savings. So again, examples for this would be a coaching agent to make sure that not only are managers given more time to do coaching, but they also have an AI agent analyzing every single interaction of the sales rep and the customer, and then giving them a report saying, hey, based on your specific methodology, here are the things that we would suggest you do to improve the win rates or coaching, and et cetera. So again, most of these things you'll see here are things that Momentum can do, but there's lots of different technologies out there that can do this. But these are the things that create a larger impact beyond just time savings. The next level is when you start thinking about reinvention. So think about when we start to really see ourselves. I've been in a couple of Gartner and Forrester events lately. We're going through this like renaissance period where we're reinventing how we can go to market or sales or revenue in general. And so this requires you to rethink how you do things. So for example, here with use cases, what if you had an AI agent that was totally in charge of the territory orchestration based on the talents and connections of the sales team members? So instead of a human doing it, it's actually an AI agent platform or AI agent orchestration of multiple agents doing this. Or what if you had some way for enablement to auto curate and create personalized learning paths that's dynamic based on the person's skill level? Or with marketing, having an AI persona builder that's using both third-party data signals and first-party data signals and creating it together in ICP map that's so rich, all done by AI. So this is the kind of thing that I feel like we're going to feel or see a lot more of as we continue to grow, and see what people can do with these multiple agents and the different platforms that people are coming out with MCP and agent-to-agent protocols, that kind of thing. So it's going to be exciting to see that. So what we want to do, and this is kind of the crucial part around ROI, is really identifying, once we know which one of the OR matrix things we want to look at, let's just say time savings. Let's look at the workflows, like who's involved in the workflows, where's the pain at? If we're trying to create more revenue, let's just say revenue is the goal from step one, and we want to upgrade to $10 million, who's involved with that? Is it the sales team? Is it CS team? Is it business development teams? Like, who is that involved? What are the steps that they are asked to be done, whether it's prospecting or taking care of the customers on a QBR? How long does that particular thing take? Again, time. This is a very easy place to start. What systems are being used, and what are the handoffs? Where's the friction that's happening in between the teams? Like one that we solve for, again, at Momentum, is the handoffs between sales and CS. There's a lot of data that gets lost. And so we have our AI agent team auto create a handoff note that then gets given to the CS that gives them everything they could ever ask for, so that they're in the know of what's happened through the sales process so they can better take care of the customers. So you want to identify some critical key pain points. So example would be data issues. Like this is a big one where anytime you see anyone doing anything manual, it's like prime for AI disruption to make sure it can be there. If it's inaccurate, duplicated, or delayed access to key information. There's communication gaps. So when do teams not know what's going on in between teams? Like, for example, the sales team to the CS team, and how can you help the friction be lessened? There's a workflow friction in general, like all the different steps that all these different team members have to do. We can expedite and speed that up. And then lastly is all the decision-making barriers where leaders want to know what in the world's going on in the pipeline, but they have no way to watch every single call on whatever conversational intelligence tool. They can't wait for meetings to happen because maybe the person got sick. Like, there's all these places that happen. These are great pain points to be able to dive in and really see how we can use the AI to do all this. So one thing to look at is data readiness. And I forgot to put a second S on there, so my apologies for those English people watching. And that's making sure we even have things like this of like, where does the data live? Do we know where it lives? Who owns it? How is it collected? Do we even have it? One cool thing about AI, which I'm going to zip through some of these, is that I always compare it to my Oura ring. I had all these things happening within my body, like sleep and steps and all this stuff that I couldn't measure before. But as soon as I had this Oura ring, I had all these metrics that I now could measure and then take to my doctor and say, hey, there's my stuff going on with my heart and everything else. So it's this kind of thing that AI can do. I like to compare AI to this because it unveils all these hidden metrics that can be shown within a conversation, within a workflow, within your own team, that becomes insanely powerful to better diagnose where you're at. So sometimes AI can be used as a leverage to diagnose different things. You can know what's happening and hopefully speed it up and make it better. So this is where, after you now know, okay, we now know we want to increase revenue. We've now seen who's involved. We've mapped out the workflows. We see where the friction's at. Now we got to see where are the AI capabilities of where we're going and who can match that the best. So we want to understand like just the basic capabilities of different AI technologies that we can go through. So some of the big ones are classification. So think about, can an AI label different things for us? Can it qualify the leads coming in from a BDR perspective? Can it score them? Summarization, like having really long content and summarize it really, really well. That's like mostly what Perplexity and all these other tools do, is just summarize information on the internet. You have generation. So can I create emails? Can I create proposals? Can I do different things with my technology? Can I extract the data and find the hidden resources? Can I search for data? And can I orchestrate it so multiple things are happening at once? And then the next step is evaluate organizational readiness. This is where you really got to dive into what's the humans doing with this? Like, what if we implemented an AI technology? What are we asking the humans to do or not do as a change of the result of the tech? There are some technologies, like, again, one thing that Momentum likes to focus on is that we don't want to have a high adoption problem. We try to make it as frictionless as possible. And what I'm seeing as a whole throughout different AI technologies is that really good tech is making it so the adoption is not as high as past softwares, which is nice. But even with that, you want to make sure that leadership is bought in. Like we're saying, we want to raise revenue by this percentage. We feel like this is the biggest friction point. So we're going to measure this AI tech by this particular metric that we can see if the friction is being lessened in between teams, as an example. You want to make sure you have the leadership buy-in. You have champions of saying who's going to own this and push this. Is the team familiar with what heck goes on? Are there any enablement plans of the skill gaps that we need to integrate into if we do need to, like prompt engineering, for example? Without good alignment organizationally, great tech's not going to stick and it's not going to fix your problems. So this is one part around the human side that I don't think gets talked about enough that is absolutely essential. And then phases. This is one of my favorite ones. I'm going to zip through these real quick. I personally believe that anytime you do a technology that's AI, to build trust on the output and also make sure that it's working well, you need to have a tiger team where you have people that you trust. Like, let's just say you're testing a sales tech. You have people that you trust, salespeople who are respected, who are high performers that the team likes to test out the technology. And you have RevOps or your leader involved to make sure you can track it and see where it's going and work on the fast visible wins. So again, in step 2, we looked at the friction points. When you use AI, you can say, okay, is this helping you? Do you feel like this is impacting your job? Do you have to do less manual work? Then they can actually be champions for you on the back end. So when you then roll it out to the entire team, you have your core group of champions, like your top sales reps, saying, yes, we love this technology. And the team's more likely to adopt it if that's needed. Lastly, is one of my favorites, is just going through and making sure, okay, is this moving the dial? Have we moved the average sale price? Have we moved the win ratio? Is this hitting our revenue targets? Are the key behaviors changing? Are operations better than they were before? And our AI specific metrics, are people engaging with the tool? Are we getting the value out of it that we want to? Are all things you need to think about. So one thing, just to make sure I point this out, that this is one of the things we do with Momentum, is we integrate with different technologies and we suck it in and then port it into your systems of record so that you can see it or be communicated in time based on who you need to be talking to. And I think I did it in 15 minutes or less. I think that's it. So that is everything. I know it's really fast. Again, I'm happy to share this information as we go, but I think that's it. I covered all.
Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Yeah.
Go give Jonathan a follow. He's doing really cool things. He eats, sleeps, breathes, and sometimes runs AI, I think, as well. So
That's right.
thank you, Jonathan, for your leadership and for all you're doing. Pleasure to meet you. Let's do lunch soon.
Thank you, man. Let's do it.
Okay, everyone. Now we're going to flip to something that, as you remember earlier, Juan and Mohammed talked about how governance is cool. Like, for some of you, you may have been like, really? Governance is cool? Well, it is. And our good friend, the CEO of Blue Yeti, Frederick DeWerken, is going to talk to us all about that. When you think of when you're scaling AI, risk scales with it unless you get out in front of it. So Frederick's going to talk to us today and walk us through what proper enterprise-grade governance really looks like. Blue Yeti is one of our amazing partners that we've started to do quite a bit of work with recently. They presented, co-founder with Frederick presented at Domopalooza just a couple of months ago, built an AI agent on the Domo platform, and we are excited to see what it is they've continued to do and what they're sharing with their clients. So with that, Frederick, thanks for coming. Thanks for all you're doing, and excited to hear you. Take it away.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much. Juan and Mohammed are both great friends. Juan's on our advisory board, and I'm actually here in the Domo offices. You guys have such wonderful facilities, such a wonderful environment, and a fabulous culture that you've worked on. It shows, and I'm glad to be a part of that. And today we're going to talk about getting rid of the doom with Domo. So as Mark said, my name is Fred DeWerken. I am CEO of Blue Yeti. We're a center of excellence focused on helping companies and individuals get the most out of modern data stack. You can learn more about our assessments and our offerings if you go to www.blueyeti.us. Today, we'll be exploring how to get rid of the doom of governing AI while transforming your business operations along the way. Let's start with a bit of context. Move fast and break things might have been very cool back in 2005 when everybody was talking about Facebook and what they were doing. But today, that approach can break trust. It breaks safety, and it certainly could break systems. In industries like insurance or PE portfolios or other high-stake decision environments, you simply cannot afford ungoverned velocity. So the real shift is this. It's not about moving fast. It's also about not moving slow. And when the constraints are speed versus accuracy, you want to move as fast as possible, but with confidence, with visibility, and with purpose. That means knowing who triggered what data drove a decision, and what the downstream effects of that decision are. What is required in this new era is thinking about agents as digital employees, but then providing those digital employees with role clarity, context, and instruction. None of that is possible if governance is just a checkbox at the end of a roadmap, or if it's just another layer of bureaucracy inside of an already bureaucratic arena. The reality is we've engineered systems that are now smarter than our policies, and they're going to continue to get smarter. Autonomous AI agents, whether scripted bots or adaptive machine learning routines, are making decisions without traditional oversight. There's no paper trail, there's no version control, there's no accountability. And when something goes wrong, when a model drifts, when a risk is miscalculated, when an insight is wrong, the question becomes, who do we hold accountable? Governance used to mean that IT had a checklist and compliance had a binder and people felt good. That's simply not going to cut it. Not in this world. Governance today needs to be built into the system from day one, not patched in afterwards. Meet the Domo Agent Catalyst, a solid foundation for governed, intelligent automation. Think of it like this. AI agents are like autonomous vehicles. They can drive themselves, yeah, like an 18-year-old, but they need lanes, speed limits, and navigation to make sure they're not steering into walls. Domo enables that with real-time compliance, auditability, access and privacy controls, lineage, data quality enforcement, discoverability, stewardship, and management. These are not guardrails that slow teams down. They're guardrails that let teams move even faster, with fewer meetings and more time spent in the flow, fewer manual checks, and fewer oh crap moments. Instead of building a workflow, worrying about governance separately and hoping it doesn't go rogue, the approach that we offer bakes safety into the core from the very beginning. Underpinning it all is Snowflake, the secure enterprise-grade elastic data backbone. As Frank Slootman coined it, the AI data cloud. Snowflake was built cloud native from the ground up. It supports zero copy cloning, time travel, micro-partitioning, extensibility, immutability, and a data marketplace built on their powerful data sharing capabilities. What that means for you and your organization is trust. Trust in the past, trust in the present, trust in the projected future states of your data. Trust that when your AI agents query a data set, or an underwriter triggers a forecast, or an ops partner benchmarks KPIs, they're working from the same consistent truth. This is what we mean by continuous data protection. It's not just encryption at rest. It's integrity at motion and at the speed that your business requires. Even with all this tech, your human layer is still drowning. Look at this stat coming from a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers study on the workplace. 53% of workers feel completely overwhelmed. 53%. Fewer people are making more decisions, and the stakes are only getting higher. But why is that? Because the decisions are front-loaded, and because the loops between the time you press execute and the time the results come back in are much bigger. If something breaks, it's not a dashboard glitch. It's potentially a multi-million-dollar miss. So what do? We design systems that let people operate at their best, not ask them to work harder or faster. The answer isn't more dashboards. It's more intelligent defaults built right into their workflow and fewer places to fail. Let me walk you through how we're already making this work inside complex organizations. First, we bring Domo to the edge, right into the hands of the business units and users who need the information at the time that they need it. Then Snowflake anchors the data. It provides a reliable, governed, queryable database. No more shadow data, a true system of record. Add Cortex AI for intelligence. Controlled, scalable models that can live inside of a governed environment, not in experimental playgrounds. Your data never leaves the secure zone of Domo and Snowflake. The result? Confident autonomy. Agents that act and act responsibly. Humans that supervise, not sit there and babysit processes and functions. It's governed by AI in action, and it allows you to move fast with confidence and trust. Let's bring this to life with a practical example of governed AI in action, not in theory, but in production. The app that Mark referred to is actually an app that we built with inside of Domo, and it connects directly to a client Snowflake environment. It automatically scans for expensive queries and inefficient processes, and then routes those through Snowflake's Cortex AI. The result? Cortex delivers optimization recommendations in real time. And because this happens inside the governed ecosystem of Snowflake plus Domo, those recommendations can be reviewed, validated, and implemented directly in the business workflow. Again, this is not a sandbox. It's not a science project. It's a secure, auditable, human-in-the-loop system where optimization doesn't just get suggested, it gets done. And all of it happens with transparency, accountability, and speed. That's the power of governed agentic workflows. Secure, business-aligned, immediately impactful. That's the difference between experimenting with AI and operationalizing it towards business value. Oh, by the way, we built this app in less than 2 weeks, and it's going to be soon available in the Domo app marketplace. Think of your unified governance framework as one umbrella encompassing humans, agents, and data. It's not just about enforcement, it's about enablement. Sure, it's an automation first design, but with auditability and traceability built in, it won't burden your users with unnecessary changes to their routines. Some of the KPIs that you'll now track, just as Coach said in the previous presentation, will be regarding the adoption and use of agents, along with outcomes. So it's time to give every model, every agent, and every decision maker the same clarity and accountability. That way, governance becomes embedded into the data-driven culture, a design pattern that is just as important as the Apple logo was and is to Macintosh computers, a true North Star to develop towards. I know you might be thinking, how do we make all this PowerPoint fairy dust into reality? To which I reply, start by documenting your analytical maturity so that you don't get ahead of your skis. Align your AI strategy to where your business is, not to where you wish it was. There's a great book that I recommend to executives trying to wrap their head around all of this, and it's called Your AI Survival Guide by Sol Rashidi. She provides an analytical maturity model that you can take through a survey. That readiness questionnaire and some of the guidelines on selecting use cases are solid gold. Really great resource. Then standardize agent onboarding. Make sure every new automation has a life cycle, from ideation to deployment to decommissioning. Third, evolve your governance as your workloads change. If you're scaling compute, scaling AI, or scaling users, your policies may need to scale with it. Actually, they really will need to scale with it. Fourth, partner for that scale. Don't DIY this. Work with platforms that are tried and true, like Snowflake and Domo. They've already solved the hard stuff and solved it securely. The build it yourself route has white elephant written all over it. Expensive white elephant, by the way. And if you need immediate help, you can contact us. We have an AI readiness assessment that can help you prioritize and organize your efforts around AI. Many of the world's tech leaders are calling this coming era an abundance era like no one has ever seen before. Others are warning of a cataclysmic crisis and imminent doom, famine, all that kind of stuff. Look, it's not about doom. It's about consequences. When governance fails, people get burned, decisions get questioned, trust evaporates, and organizations go backwards. When governance works, it fades into the background. It becomes the quiet engine that powers your autonomy and your ability to stay in the flow, not the red tape that slows you down. That's part of our mission at Blue Yeti, to help you build systems that are fast, flexible, and focused on business value. So here's the choice we're faced with. Keep doing it the old way or govern at the speed of AI. Get rid of the doom or move forward with confidence. For more information about Blue Yeti's AI Readiness Assessment or any of our other offerings, please reach out to set up a call. And if you'd like to take me up on the offer for Sol Rashidi's book, happy to send it to anybody who's interested. Thank you, Mark Booth and team. This has been a wonderful experience. I'm honored to be part of your AI Innovation Summit, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Frederick, thank you. Thank you so much. So many really important and relevant things to take away from that session. We are excited about the cool things that we're doing with Blue Yeti and excited to see you down at Snowflake Summit in just a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you. Okay, everyone. And to close us out, last but certainly not least, we have an absolute, can I say Titan, Steve? Is that okay? To say a Titan in the tech world. Steve Harlow is the VP of Software Development at Opus, another really great Domo customer. And Steve's team is using Agentic AI to accelerate software development. They're reducing complexity, turning requirements into action. And so I'm excited today for Steve to talk to you a little bit about what they're doing, what they're seeing, and how you can hopefully copy some of the things that Steve and team have already figured out. With that, Steve, take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you, Mark. That was quite the introduction. I don't know that I deserve that, but I'm certainly glad to be here with you all today. So, all right, excited to get started here. All right, so yeah, Mark gave me a good introduction there. So I'll dive right in and tell you a little bit more about how we're trying to accelerate software requirements using Agentic AI. So let's see. So first off, give a little bit of background as far as the problem definition here. One of the challenges that we ran into was that we were often missing or having complete requirements, and this was affecting our execution on the downstream software deliverables. So things like requirements, work breakdown structures, informed estimates, and being able to tie that all into a schedule. When those things were not done well or not done at all, that was certainly affecting the downstream results. So what we did is we said, you know, that if we could fill those 4 gaps, that would be a critical breakthrough. And so the hypothesis was that we could actually use Gen AI to help accelerate and automate the bulk of these efforts. And really, it was about getting to a solid draft for some of these deliverables, being able to have a good work breakdown structure for the project management team to manage with, a good set of requirements for the software team to be able to work with, and also being able to get to a point of better estimating the activities required to deliver that software. So those were things, and this hypothesis is what led us to saying, hey, how can AI be a part of solving for this? So our initial attempt was basically just to say, what could we do manually, just with some of the standard chat models that are available out there? So we looked at OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, Copilot, et cetera. And we tried to get to what we considered a good draft for some of these key documents. We put together some summaries, some initial stabs at the milestones or the deliverables for the projects. And we found that it was really important to give the right context to these models. And really, if you could provide detailed guidance on what was needed and the output you wanted to see, they really gave some amazing results. And this was working on some very large and complex documents, not just simple text, but some pretty complex PDFs, Word docs, etc. And but we did notice some models work better than others. So depending on what you're trying to do, we definitely recommend that iteration, trial and error with different models to see what's going to get you there. And that was kind of our initial undertaking there. So here's an example of one of the prompts that we ended up with for putting together a work breakdown structure. You see it there on the right. It calls out a number of things. What's the task that the agent is doing? What are the specific deliverables going to be looking like? How are they going to be formatted? So making sure that all of these things were quite specific in detail. And this would then become the basis for creating future downstream documents. So we consider the work breakdown structure kind of like the index of what needs to be done. And then the requirements, whether they be software requirements, business requirements, estimates, could all be driven off of this. And so this was kind of the linchpin of being able to use AI to improve this whole process. Here's an example of one of the initial documents able to create, able to provide the list of the WBS items, a description, a category, identify where in the documents that they were actually identified. And this was just using the standard chat models available to pretty much anyone out there today. So that kind of gave us a sense that we're on the right path and that we could actually use these to deliver some pretty good results. So this was one of those kind of early results. We're also be able to do the same thing with targeting business requirements. So here we're really focused on what are we trying to accomplish with some of these solutions or projects that we were building out. And so again, looking at like 500-page long PDFs, 300-page Word documents. These were large and complex. And so being able to get to this level of clarity was a really important step without having software engineers read a 500-page document, because I think we all know how that works. Not very well.
All right, so the next item was looking at actually creating the software requirements themselves. So these tended to be more technical, had details around hardware, software definitions, certain syntax and way things needed to be done. And we're also, because of the detail in some of these contracts and proposals that we had at our disposal, was also able to deliver them with pretty good quality. And again, these are not something that we would consider final documents, but they were good drafts that we could take into JAD sessions, working with our software team, working with our customer, and to make sure we were aligned on what the requirements were and how we were going to solve those with our projects that we were undertaking. So basically, where did this leave us? So in over the course of several weeks, we're able to basically have a good manual solution using AI. We knew from the capability of some of the base models that AI was ready for this. We were able to put together some optimized prompts that we were able to refine and get better over those weeks to the point where we were able to get solid results. But one of the things that we noticed is if you try to do too much at once, it didn't work very well. And so the better results we saw when you gave it very specific, not only the specific guidance, but limited it to like one thing at a time. So give me the requirements for the sticker management module, things like that. It was able to give much better results. And so this is what told us, you know what, this is the perfect use case for agentic AI, because we're able to take these smaller pieces, process them individually, and then at the end assemble them back to a complete solution. And so that seemed to be kind of match what agentic AI was kind of really made to do. All right. So what did we do? So we investigated some of the different agentic AI solutions that were out there. There was a number of courses on Coursera, edX, other industry forums talking about things like LangChain and Crew AI. So we went through, looked at those resources. We actually came across a couple books that talked about using AI to improve the way that you gather and execute your requirements. And ironically, this is after we kind of stumbled through this on our own first, but it was some good validation that others were also finding this path a reasonable one. So those were some of the research and reference that we looked at to make sure we were going down a good path. And then the next thing we did is we put together a process flow. You know what? At the front end, we want to load in these different documents, and we want to be able to create these different outputs. The right side is really about creating a summary, and the left side is really about creating the detailed work breakdown that then leads into the business and software requirements. And then each step along the way actually has a QA step to validate that output and to make sure that the results were matching our expectations. So this was really where we started working with the Domo team on understanding how Agent Catalyst could fit into this as one of the potential options. And so having this well-defined up front, I think helped us to be able to turn our use case into an agent. But we did explore other solutions. We looked really in three primary places. First, we did look to see if there are any other existing tools out there that would meet this need. We looked at building it ourselves internally, and we did explore Domo, AWS, and some other SaaS partners to see what else might be out there to deliver the type of process that we were looking for. So as far as the first item, that was a bit of there were some vendors out there that kind of claimed to do this or seemed to do it in some limited cases, but none of them really met our full requirements in terms of these large complex documents being able to upload or upload multiples of them. And they really didn't give the structured output we needed. So that one was kind of a little bit of a strike, but we will continue to look at what resources might come in the future, but for now, that really didn't meet our needs. Number two, we actually did internal POC. It took us about a week and put together a LangChain proof of concept that actually was able to pull in the documents, do some very initial prompts, and that was before we had really refined our prompt structure. But we have brought in some interns to look at furthering this concept, and we plan to create an MVP on this this summer. And it's really still an option if depending on how the other things went. So we definitely, this was an important problem for us to solve, and so we wanted to have kind of more than one path forward. But the third one was really the one that I'm here to talk to the most today. Actually, this one, I guess I did skip over this. A little bit about the architecture for those that are curious. That proof of concept was involved doing some data ingestion, storing the items in a vector database, and then creating these different agents to be able to parse out the information that was needed. So that was kind of the initial proof of concept that we did internally. But from there, I was in the middle of doing that when Domo actually announced the Agent Catalyst at the Domo Palooza in late March. And some of the items that kind of flagged as this being a potential solution was the some of the governance that was mentioned by Fred on the last presentation around the Domo GPT model, the ability to have file sets, to be able to read things from file sets, store things into file sets, as an important part of that whole model of being able to create software requirements, as well as having the workflow and the other items kind of part of that infrastructure. So that's what made me very excited about working with Domo on that. We spent about 2 to 3 weeks, and together with the Domo team, we put together this first agent. Here's a couple looks at what that looks like. You've got the ability to ingest documents into that. You can actually choose what model you want to use for processing it, and you can actually override the various prompts, the user prompt, the system prompt, etc. And so right now, this is the prompt that we're using to create the work breakdown structure, but it's pretty easy to change those prompts for your specific needs. This is actually a screenshot of the results showing the table of the work breakdown structure items, the descriptions, the hierarchical nature of it. And in addition to having it in table structure, also able to have it as a JSON payload, so that can also then be used to feed into other downstream workflows. And that, of course, limits the number of tokens you're using, limits the cost, the complexity, etc. So that was, so far, this is where we've been able to get in building out this agent with the Domo team. We have a couple more things kind of in the future that we're looking to do together. So far, we're seeing positive results on these initial work breakdown structures that were created. The ability to save the state for later processing is definitely very beneficial. And next steps, we're looking to iterate on actually the generation of the requirements and the estimates from this saved work breakdown structure state. So those are coming up soon in the next few weeks, but so far in the pilot, those first couple steps of what's been completed so far. So here's a few more thoughts around next steps. We're going to complete the automation to process each of the work breakdown structure entries, which was really one of the things that caused the biggest pain for our team doing it manually. So if they did 1, 2, 3 items together, those worked fine. But if you tried to do 100 of them, it just fell apart. And so having the agentic AI be able to play that role of processing each of the work breakdown structures, creating the requirements, saving them out, and then being able to tweak the prompts if needed for the business requirements, the software requirements, and then be able to present all of that back for the team to use. So I'm really excited about what we're able to do in a few short weeks with the Domo team, taking our idea, working with their engineering team to help build out this initial proof of concept. And I'm really excited to be able to use that to do better with generating software requirements for the team. And so anyways, that's what I plan to share today. And turn it back over to Mark. Thanks for having me here, and looking forward to some next steps on making this kind of a standard part of our process.
Steve, thank you so much for sharing. I know this is new. This is literally built just over the past few weeks. and what they're doing to lean forward from a software development perspective is really, really cool. I'm excited to see what other innovations come out of you and your team here in the near future, Steve. Thanks again for coming with us.
Thank you.
Okay, my friends, that is a wrap on the keynotes, and what a lineup we've had. Hopefully you felt like me walking away having so many things to think about, so much great content, just an incredible showcase of what's happening in the AI space. I got a note from a friend just a few minutes ago that said, wow, this AI summit should be mandatory watching for every company. This has been a literal roadmap on how to roll out AI. Go share it. Go share it with your friends. Go share it with your colleagues. So many amazing things were shared today about how you can be better and not wait to start leveraging AI, but how you can be better today. Huge thanks to everybody today that was a big speaker, everyone that tuned in across the globe from all over the place. Don't forget that you can go and rewatch any of this session, as well as all of the on-demand content, which is amazing, at aai-summit.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your takeaways on LinkedIn. Tag folks who inspired you, and keep building, because as you know, agentic AI isn't the future anymore, it's the now. So on behalf of Domo, thank you for being part of the first ever Agentic AI Innovation Summit. We're excited to do more of these in the future, and excited to be able to watch and see what you build. Thank you and have a great day.